Junseol Choi was just a little girl when her parents passed away. She only had her grandfather left, who took on the responsibility of caring for his granddaughter. Every time Junseol got into a fight with the neighborhood kids and came home with bruises, he would calm her down and tend to her wounds. Because of this, the protagonist always strived to fulfill all of her grandfather's wishes. But one day, she discovered that he had cancer and didn't have much time left. Accidentally overhearing his conversation, Junseol discovered that her grandfather dreamed of walking her down the aisle in the time he had left. The next day, the protagonist goes to college, but her thoughts are occupied only by this terrifying news. She understands that her grandfather wants to marry her off because he is worried, but she still has Uncle Jai Liang and Aunt Sung Jiam, who will always support her. Looking at a dating app, Junseol thinks that she is also still too young to get married. After class, Seo Kyung approaches the girl and suggests they go grab something to eat. However, Junseol suddenly gets up from her seat and grabs the boy by his jacket sleeve. Without giving him explanations, she drags him somewhere. As they walk down the street, Seo Kyung tries to figure out if she is angry about being late for class again. Suddenly, Junseol stops and, blushing intensely, asks the boy if he would marry her. Her heart races, and those seconds while Seo Kyung looks at her surprised feel like an eternity. But suddenly he hugs her and, squeezing her happily, tells her yes. Although it's unexpected, he cannot refuse Junseol and suggests doing it when they turn 30. Because they are too young right now. Before she can reply anything, Seo Kyung's phone starts ringing. His friends invite him to meet new and attractive students, an offer he cannot refuse. He suggests to Junseol that they continue the conversation tomorrow, but she begs him not to take it seriously and says she was joking. Seo Kyung kisses the girl on the cheek and admits he assumed as much, although his heart did beat faster for a moment. With those words, he says goodbye until tomorrow and leaves. Upon leaving university, the protagonist scolds herself for the foolishness she just committed. Nothing serious could be expected from someone as frivolous as Seo Kyung. Absorbed in her thoughts, the young woman doesn't see the person walking in front and bumps into his shoulder. A tall man irritably tells Junseol to be more careful and not walk around distracted in the street. But the protagonist doesn't stay quiet and retorts that he also could have dodged her if he saw she was preoccupied and didn't see him. Insisting that the man should apologize, she walks around him to continue on her way. But Junseol doesn't manage to get far when the stranger suddenly grabs her arm. He had seen a car approaching them at full speed and pulled the girl out of the way. The protagonist realizes what just happened when she feels herself lying next to the stranger on the hood of a parked car. In the next instant, she suddenly leans toward the man and kisses him on the lips. Stunned, the stranger abruptly pushes the strange girl away. Getting up, he explains that he grabbed her because he saw a car approaching at full speed. Junseol ignores him and suggests forgetting what happened, as if today wasn't her day. She is about to leave, but the stranger yells at her, demanding thanks and compensation for that unexpected kiss. Turning back to the man, the heroine asserts that he has never kissed before. Otherwise, he would know that their lips only brushed. With a playful smile, the stranger points out that she doesn't seem like someone who has never kissed, which could certainly be said of her. His insolent attitude and demand for gratitude irritate Junseol, and she declares that she has kissed 108 times. Not wanting to continue the discussion, the heroine turns around and hurries away. The girl's strange behavior amuses the man, and he even finds it interesting. The next day, Sujin invites her classmates out somewhere. It's all on her. Sakyun supports the idea, and putting his arm around her shoulder, the girl says how fun it is to spend time with him. Everyone falls silent when the professor enters the classroom. Along with him enters another man who, for some reason, looks familiar to Junseol. The professor asks the students to welcome the new guest professor, who will be teaching the entrepreneurship course this semester. Jang Yongkang smiles and introduces himself to the audience. Junseol freezes upon recognizing the man she ran into yesterday in the parking lot as the professor. Befuddled, she leans toward her desk and tries to hide behind a textbook, while the other female students comment enthusiastically about the new, handsome professor. The protagonist thinks, what is the point of beauty if the person has a detestable character? Unexpectedly, Junseol suddenly remembers their kiss from yesterday. She is so angry with herself about this that her strange behavior does not escape Jeong Yoon's attention. Just then, the professor addresses the student hiding behind the book and asks for her name. Jun Seol, believing she is truly lost now, introduces herself insecurely. Jun Kang jokes about not knowing the study method of biting books, and the class bursts into laughter. He asks Miss Choi to explain the content of point 8 on page 10 of the book. After class, Soojin approaches Jun to tell him how surprised she is to see him there. She suggests they have coffee together at the cafe next door, but Kang refuses, claiming to be very busy. Leaving the classroom, he adds that professors and students shouldn't have coffee together. Upon learning that Soojin knows the new professor, because their families are close, her classmates do not hide their envy. Meanwhile, Jaehyun Yoon suggests lunch to Jun Seol, but the protagonist refuses, saying she doesn't feel well and wants to go home as soon as possible. And without waiting for her friend, she runs off. Catching up to Mr. Khan, the heroine begs him to stop and talk. When the man turns, she apologizes for the mess of their first encounter and asks him not to mention it in class. Junhyun smiles, as he thought she hadn't recognized him. He asserts that he never mixes personal matters with work. And today, he only corrected one student, so Kacho shouldn't think too much of it. At night, while Yoon-seol studies, her grandfather calls her. He tells her that this Saturday he will go to Seoul to meet a close friend's son. A brother to him, he wants to introduce him to his granddaughter and suggests she accompany him on this trip. Jun-seol agrees, but upon hanging up, she feels her heart fill with sadness. The next day, the grandfather happily gets out of the car to greet his old friend, Kan Taejin. The old man is flattered that the director of a large company and his wife, Hyosok, personally came out to greet him. He introduces Yoon-seol to them and mentions that her parents were also friends with these wonderful people. Mr. Kang Taejin is the owner of a large corporation, T8. After the greetings, the hosts kindly invite the guests inside the house. Taejin worries that his old friend made such a trip, but the man jokes that he is in great shape. According to Mr. Kang, if it weren't for Yoon-seol's grandfather, his corporation wouldn't be what it is today. Upon entering the house, the protagonist is surprised by its rich decoration. Approaching the girl, Mr. Taejin regrets not having seen her since her parents died. Hearing his words, Hyosok asks her husband not to make her sad, but she assures him she is fine. The man adds that he hopes they see each other more often now, and tells her to call them if she needs anything. Kang laughs and adds that she could even be the daughter he always wanted, gaining 2 brothers as a bonus. Just then, the youngest son of the Junseo family comes out to receive the guests. The last time the grandfather saw Taejin, he only had 1 son, and now, seeing the youngest grown up, he feels old. The door to the room opens, and Hyosok introduces everyone to her eldest son. As she turns, Jun-seol freezes. Yoongjung Kang is in front of her again. For an eternal moment, they stare at each other, completely stunned. A little later, the protagonist goes out to the garden to get some fresh air. Jun follows her. He also didn't expect this reunion and starts to believe it is destiny. Jun-seol, noticing how small the world is, suggests they start over and thanks him for saving her life. Ironically, Jun replies that if she remembers that, she must also remember their kiss. But she asks him not to go into detail. The man suggests Jun-seol call him by his name. After all, they are not at a conference. But the protagonist finds it hard to let go of formalities. He is 5 years older and also has more experience. This confession amuses Jun and reminds the girl that she bragged about having kissed many times. The protagonist is so furious that she orders him to pretend they don't know each other at university, and adds that she only came here for her grandfather and his parents. The man replies that's what he expected, and that Sul doesn't have to pretend to be adorable. Leaning towards the protagonist with a smile, he assures her that it doesn't suit her at all. Young returns to the house, leaving the girl in the garden, red with embarrassment and rage. A few days later, in class, Yoon whispers to her friend that she thinks the professor has feelings for Sul. For example, today, when she and Seo Kyung were late, Mr. Kang only scolded her and said nothing to the boy. The protagonist asks her friend not to make things up, as the only thing the professor can feel for her is anger. Soo-jin interrupts the conversation, dismissing Kyung-yoon's thoughts as nonsense, because Jun-young likes smart and stylish girls. According to her, it doesn't mean Jun-seol isn't attractive. It just isn't his type. The protagonist sees no problem with that, because, although she is looking for a future husband, she does not plan to consider him a candidate, declaring that, in that case, she will be the first to approach Young tomorrow. Soo-jin gets up from her desk and leaves the classroom. Yoon cannot believe her friend really wants to find a husband at such an early age, and hopes she is joking. And then, Junseol confesses that, quite seriously, she has already registered on the app, and even proposed marriage to Seo Kyeon. Her friend, shocked, tries to explain to her that she cannot take this so lightly, and that she must find someone mature and established. She proposes a blind date to the protagonist and promises to ask her aunt for help, who owns an agency. On Saturday, as agreed, Junseol goes to the hotel where Jeong Yoon's aunt organized her meeting. Sitting in the lobby, she texts her friend and asks what she is supposed to do. At that moment, the girl hears someone call her name from behind. Turning around, Junseol realizes that finding the ideal man will be more difficult than she thought. A man in a striking yellow plaid suit and a blue polka dot bow tie apologizes for being late. Despite his ridiculousness, he turned out to be excessively conceited, and the protagonist knew he was definitely not for her. The following week, Yoonseol met another man who forbade her from eating cake so she wouldn't gain weight. The girl spent the rest of the evening listening to a lecture on the harms of sugar. The next man saw spirits behind Yoonseol, supposedly summoned to protect her. The following Saturday, the protagonist meets another guy again, who immediately brings up the topic of marriage. He apologizes if he made her uncomfortable with that conversation, but Yoonseol affirms that she herself is thinking about getting married. At that moment, she accidentally spills a cup of coffee, and the guy immediately jumps up to call the waiter. He offers the girl a napkin to wipe her hand, and at that moment, Yoonseol feels like she has finally found the one she was looking for. Meanwhile, on the other side of the lobby, Jun Young is sitting talking on the phone with his mother. The man is furious with Hyo Suk because she decided to introduce him to someone without consulting him. In response, the woman argues that the daughter of a good friend of hers wanted to meet him after learning of his business successes. As soon as Jun Young hangs up the phone, a girl approaches his table. He looks at her, and his mother's words about him, at least trying to get to know her better, echo in his head. Since her family is very influential in the political and business world, Jun Young finds the girl's face familiar and asks if they have met before. She replies that they met at her father's birthday a few years ago. The girl asks Kan about his business, and he says he is in the hospitality industry because he doesn't want to depend on his father. This impresses the girl, and she hopes they can get to know each other better and that her father can help Junyoung develop his business. But bang, the guy abruptly cuts the conversation short with a cheap excuse. She, thinking she arrived at the worst moment, grabs her purse and flees. Red with embarrassment over that snub, Junyoung lets out a deep sigh and sinks back into the armchair. Meanwhile, Junseol tells her new friend about her grandfather, with whom she has lived since her parents passed away. The boy wants to know if he is a politician, a businessman, or, what do I know, a millionaire. She replies that it could be any of them, because her grandfather raised her without lacking anything. But the young man is not satisfied with this ambiguous answer. He spent a fortune to meet someone of her caliber. He asks her not to play innocent. She perfectly knew why she was here. Taking Yoonseol by the arm, he tells her he knows people of her kind very well, who only seek to catch a rich man. And now he demands that she be a good girl and accompany him to the room, or he will call the police. Just as the protagonist asks who he thinks he is, Yoonyoung passes by. He overhears a guy demanding she please him, and in return, he promises to make her rich. Approaching them, Yoonyoung grabs the stranger's wrist with an unfriendly face. Then, without saying a word, he pushes him away from the girl. Taking Yoonseol's hand, Junjung pulls her away from the table where everything happened and drags her along. Following him, the girl thanks the man, as she fears imagining what would have happened if he hadn't intervened. Since Junjung is still holding her hand, the protagonist tells him he can let go now. To his curt question about whether she came for a blind date, Yoonseol replies that it's none of his business. According to him, a quick look at her makeup and attire is enough to understand what she was doing here. In any case, it seems to him that everything that guy said was obviously true. Asserting that nothing is as it seems, the protagonist collapses onto the nearest armchair. Gathering her courage, Yoonseol confesses that her grandfather is sick, and she is only trying to fulfill his last wish. Hunjong doesn't understand. Does love not matter in marriage? And is she willing to have these blind dates? According to the protagonist, her priority now is her grandfather, and love doesn't interest her at all. She just needs to get married, and at first, that guy seemed decent enough, as he immediately talked about marriage. Jun Young sits on the adjacent sofa, and Yoo Seol already starts regretting telling him everything. Seeing her expression, the protagonist feels that he will now consider her even stranger. However, after a brief silence, Jun Young suddenly looks up at the girl and proposes marriage to her. This proposal is so unexpected that Yoo Seol thinks she misheard. The man reminds her that she herself said she would accept any proposal, but the prospect makes the girl laugh. But Jun Young is very serious and says it will be a mutually beneficial arrangement. Their families are close, so Yoo Seol's grandfather will be happy if they marry. And Kim will also gain married status. From what he says, the girl deduces that he also came to the hotel for a blind date. Jun Young confirms it and states he doesn't want to waste any more time on it. Besides, if he married someone else, he would have to worry about her feelings, which he is not interested in. Unlike Yoo Seol, who only wants the status of a wife, the protagonist asks the man to give her time to think about his proposition. Han Yang smiles and tells Yoo Seol to meet in 3 days at 5 o'clock, in the same parking lot where they met. If the girl doesn't show up at the agreed time, he will take it as a rejection. 3 days later, at 4:50, Jun Yang is already at the agreed spot. Looking at his watch, 10 minutes later, the girl still hasn't shown up. She doesn't even arrive by 5:10. Not understanding what he expected, the man is about to get into the car when he hears Yoo Seol's voice. Panting, the protagonist justifies herself by saying that class ran a little longer today, and since Jun Jung waited for her, it means she could still accept his proposal. But the girl has one condition. She wants to keep this marriage secret until she finishes university. Kang is a very popular professor, so rumors about their wedding could be a catastrophe for her. Young Young accepts the proposal. Shaking the girl's hand, he tells her it's a pleasure doing business with her. Suddenly, the man pulls Yoo Seol towards him and hugs her tightly. Indignant, the protagonist asks who told him he could hug her like that. Young Young, with his typical ironic smile, reminds the girl that they are a couple now, and they must pretend. That night, the entire Kang family gathered for dinner. Yun Young asks his parents for attention, as he has news to deliver. Without beating around the bush, he drops the bombshell. Yun Seol and he are getting married. Jin celebrates the union with Mr. Choi's daughter. Yun Seol understands her brother's strange behavior that day with that girl. Hyo Seol, in total shock. Mr. Kang regrets not knowing sooner, but the son replies that when he started dating Yun Seol, he was unaware of the closeness of their families. Hyo Seok wants to know how long they have been dating, since Yoon only started teaching in his course a few weeks ago. He replies that theirs started earlier. That's why he got angry when his mother tried to set him up with someone. He asserts that the wedding is not due to family duty towards the Chois. Simply, he and Yoon Seol love each other. Hyo Seok looks at her son and cannot believe he is doing this for love. Really? Anger overtakes her. He grips the fork tightly, struggling to contain her emotions. Then smiling, Hyo Suk suggests her son bring the girl home again, as she wants to talk to her. After dinner, Jun Jung calls Jun Seol to tell her she is invited to his house tomorrow. He asks the girl not to be scared and to stick to the plan. After agreeing to meet tomorrow at the same place, Jun Jung says goodbye and hangs up the phone. Looking at the dark screen of her phone, the protagonist doesn't know how to calm down now. And so, the next evening, Yoon Seol returns to the Kang family house. While cutting the cake, Hye-suk is outraged that Yoon Jung sent the girl alone. The woman advises Yoon Seol to put a stop to her son if he dares to hurt her. The protagonist, smiling, replies that she arrived first because Yoon Jung had an urgent matter come up. Watching the girl closely, Hye-suk says that her son already told them the news about the wedding. She asks if Yoon Seol is sure she wants to get married so soon, when she hasn't even graduated. The protagonist explains that they will hide their marriage until graduation so it doesn't affect their studies. Turning abruptly toward the girl, Hye-suk asks where she met Yoon Jung and why they hid it. She stares intently at her abdomen, and Yoon Seol quickly assures her she isn't pregnant. Hye-suk exhales, relieved. She states that she didn't call her out of dislike, but just to ask her some questions. Watching Jun Seol closely, the woman asks if she truly loves Jun Jung. Trying to convince her, the protagonist replies that she loves him with all her heart. But Hye-suk insists and now asks if Jun Jung feels the same way about her. At that moment, the boy enters the room and tells his mother that she should be asking him that question. Approaching Yoon Seol, he puts his arms around her. Right after, Jun Young squeezes her tightly and asks what else he must do to prove how much they love each other. The boy sweetly asks Yoon Seol if his mother's questions made her uncomfortable. The protagonist replies that Hyo Seok only worries about her son, and she understands that. Later, on the way home, the girl is indignant about Junyoung's hugs, certain that her answers about love were sufficient. However, according to the boy, when his mother asked about his feelings, Junseol seemed completely confused. Not only words matter, but also body language, which must indicate their love. The protagonist thanks Junyoung for driving her home. Junseol is about to get out of the car, when suddenly he takes her hand. Smiling, the man says they must practice, and he kisses her hand. Surprise and embarrassment make the girl turn bright red. Yunyang explains that they must play their role as lovers well and practice whenever they can. Jun soon pushes him away, sure that she is acting well, but he points out her blush at the simple touch. He wants to see how she reacts if he goes further, and their eyes and lips are very close. The protagonist feels her heart racing and is paralyzed for an instant. But reacting quickly, she pushes Junyoung away, shouting that she is perfectly fine. Junseol, scolding herself for not foreseeing this, runs out of the car towards her house. Glancing back, the girl wonders if she should give up before it's too late. At that moment, her grandfather calls her, happy to hear about her wedding to Junyoung. Her aunt and uncle also congratulate her, and are glad that the grandfather no longer worries about her in Seoul. The aunt suggests celebrating the wedding at her house, and Yoonseol promises to discuss it with her fiancé later. Now, certain that it is definitely too late to back out, the protagonist returns to the car. Opening the door, she resolutely agrees to start practicing. Yoonyoung heads to the parking lot, and when the car stops, their faces lean toward each other. However, Yoonseol suddenly gets embarrassed again, doubting if they really need to kiss. Junyoung gently touches her cheek, draws her close, and kisses her. He suggests to the girl that they consider this a rehearsal for the wedding kiss, which awaits them very soon. But as Junseol remains silent, the boy turns and starts thinking about something. Himself as if he had blushed. The girl asks Junyoung for permission to tell one of her friends about their marriage, so that someone can accompany her during the wedding. The boy doesn't mind, since keeping everything secret was exclusively her initiative. Junsol doesn't understand why, but she is terrified of facing all this alone. That's why now, upon arriving at university, she wonders which of her friends could support her and help her with the wedding. Soojin is immediately ruled out, as she would not only make a scene, but also tell the entire university. Seokyeon is simple, cheerful, and loves to flirt with female students. And Jeong I-eun is a bit cynical and often doesn't get along with people, so perhaps she can keep the secret. After class, Jeong I-eun suggests to Jun Sol that they go to a cafe together. The protagonist happily agrees, saying they just needed to talk about something. Jeong I-eun, with her characteristic cynicism, asks if by chance her friend found someone. And when Junseol confesses that this is the case, the girl bombards her with questions, wanting to know immediately who he is. Since there are too many people around, the protagonist suggests to her friend that they go somewhere more secluded. Moving towards the window, she asks Jeonjeon to promise not to scream when she knows everything. After getting her word, Junseol whispers that she is going to marry Professor Kang. Unable to contain herself, her friend screams that she always knew there was something between them. The protagonist asks for silence and explains that it's for her grandfather and that it was Mr. Kang's idea. Once on the street, Junseol begs the shocked Jeongyoon to keep it a secret, since she is the only one who knows. Recovering a bit, her friend hugs her and congratulates her for finally finding a solution to her problem. But she is intrigued why Kang proposed that to her, and the girl explains that he only needs married status. Young-yoon suddenly realizes that it was the professor who saved her friend from that disastrous blind date. Her imagination runs wild, and she pictures Mr. Kang as a prince on a white steed. Just then, Seo Kyung appears running so suddenly that the girls even scream in fright. He invites his friends to eat something together and, without waiting for an answer, drags them after him. Meanwhile, Young-young is drinking coffee in a cafe near the university, admiring the falling cherry blossoms. Suddenly, he sees Junseol passing by with her friends. The man cannot take his eyes off the smiling girl, whose hair ripples in the wind with the dancing petals. Suddenly, Soojin approaches and offers to keep him company. Subsequently, Seo Kyeon and Jeong I-eun enter the cafe. She wanted a coffee before going to eat. The boy immediately sees Soojin and cheerfully waves his hand at her. He greets the professor, hoping he remembers him, and Mr. Kang comments that it's hard to forget the student who doesn't stay quiet in class. while Seo Kyung expresses his admiration for the successful businessman who teaches them. Jun Seol chooses her coffee a bit further away. Unexpectedly, the boy suggests to Soo Jin and Mr. Kang that they join them for lunch. Jun Yang looks at the heroine, who desperately tries to make him refuse, but the man turns to Seo Kyun and accepts his invitation gladly. Shortly after, Jun Seol is sitting in the restaurant with everyone, on the verge of collapse. Seo Kyun, as always, puts his beloved soft-boiled egg on the heroine's plate. Jun Yang silently observes how the boy takes care of his friend, while Soo Jin stares intently at him. Seo Kyun doesn't stop talking, and says that in Yun Seol's homeland they love ganjang with egg. He suggests the professor try it, assuring him that he will love it. While they chat, Jeong Eun closely observes Mr. Kang. Then, in her usual style, she starts teasing him about his genes, as he isn't eating with them. Ignoring them, Jun Yang asks Yun Seol when she moved to Seoul from her hometown. Seok Yoon, who doesn't stay quiet for a second, answers for her and says she moved here to study, and that she lived with her grandfather in Kyoto. Yong Sul notices that her friend is eating his ganjang with his chopsticks, and she hands him the plate, refusing to eat after him. Soo Jin, looking at them with longing, comments that they make a cute couple and asks if they are dating. Yong Sul and Seok Yoon deny the assumption in unison, stating that they are just close friends. Jun Young observes the scene with such a stone-cold expression that the protagonist feels uncomfortable. Young Yoon also doesn't feel at ease, as she knows what is really happening. After lunch, Kyan hurries to his club activities, while a driver picks up Soo Jin. And both leave. Young Yoon thinks she should leave too, and Jun Sil prepares to go with her. However, Jun Young discreetly tugs the girl's bag, implying she has to stay. Understanding his signal, the protagonist says goodbye to her friend. As soon as Jun Yoon leaves, Jun Seol asks Jun Jung what he wants from her, because she also wanted to go home. The man smiles and asks if she was really going home or to see her boyfriend. The protagonist affirms that Seo Kyung is not her boyfriend, and that she doesn't understand why Jun Jung accepted her invitation to lunch. However, the man sees nothing wrong with it, because, although they agreed to keep their relationship secret, that doesn't mean they can't get to know each other. According to him, he was simply behaving naturally with his students. Turning around, Jun Jung suggests Jun Seol follow him to the car. The protagonist is surprised by how natural and calm this man behaves, knowing that their marriage is not real. Turning to the girl, Kang extends his hand and reminds her that they must practice whenever they have the opportunity. Convinced that this relationship is actually nothing, Yoon Seol obediently places her hand in his. If Yoon can put emotions aside, she should be able to as well. The man opens the car door for the girl and notices she is still uncomfortable holding hands. He doesn't miss the opportunity to tease her again about her claims of having kissed many boys. Well, but Yoon Seol doesn't care about his joke, because she is thinking that she should pay attention to him. It will be better if they really look like a real couple, so she agrees. And she apologizes. The protagonist takes Jun Yong's hand and asks him how he thinks he looks more romantic. The man gently squeezes Jun Seol's hand, and she realizes that nothing that embarrassed her before remains. She reminds herself that she is doing this for her beloved grandfather. For him, everything. Later at home, the protagonist chats with Jeong Young, who fears that her friend's decision will cause problems. She asks if Jun Seol thought about what will happen next, if they will remain in a fake marriage until death. For Jeong I-un, Mr. Kang is a businessman and surely has already planned everything. Unlike Choi, only now does the protagonist realize that she didn't think about the consequences of this marriage. And if Jeong I-un is right, and Jun Young really makes the decisions, and she is just blindly following him. The next day, Jun Seol meets Kang in the parking lot. She hands him the contract, asserting that he, as a businessman, must understand that it is necessary in any deal. According to the agreement, they must keep the marriage secret until the end of their studies, and act as professor and student on campus. Furthermore, each has the right to a personal life. They are not obliged to simulate love always in front of the family, but they must do so in their presence. When Yoon Seol's grandfather passes away, the contract will be considered terminated. The protagonist suggests discussing all points, although she is sure they are drafted to benefit both. After examining the document, Yoon points out that the point about keeping it secret does not worry him, but he agrees if it is necessary for Yoon Seol. However, since she already told her friend, he also wants to share the news with his friend Minhyun. regarding respect for hierarchy at the university. According to Kang, Yoon Seol is the one behaving strangely. Regarding the personal life point, she says it makes no sense to know everything if their marriage is fake. Yoon Young asks if she needs that to keep flirting with Seo Kyung. How daring. He disagrees with the fourth point. He believes they should always be affectionate in front of their family, so they don't get suspicious. Yoon Seol doesn't see the need to do it all the time, or as suddenly as when he hugged her. Besides, they won't see their family often. But Jun Young insists that, sometimes, they will have to improvise. This is getting interesting. And then he drops the bombshell. His mother insisted that they live with them until Yoon Seol finishes university. She is furious that he didn't tell her about that condition earlier. How could he forget to mention it? This is unforgivable. Jun Young suggests removing that point, as well as the one about only showing affection in front of the family, because he finds it useless. As for terminating the contract upon Mr. Choi's death, Kang agrees, because it wouldn't make sense to continue. Seeing the girl's doubts about the fifth point, Jun Young asks if she's afraid he'll overstep, or if Jun Seol is simply afraid of getting carried away herself. Hearing those words, the protagonist's face changes, and she blushes scarlet. Jun Young, laughing, asks what she imagined to turn so red. Crossing out the fourth point, the girl firmly declares that she will not remove the fifth one. Furthermore, she adds a clause to the contract, stating that they must not sleep in the same bed. As agreed, it's a kind of business deal, based only on benefit, not feelings. Jun Young signs silently, next to his name on each copy. Afterward, the protagonist asks him to close his eyes as soon as he finishes. Before Jun Young can understand anything, Jun Seol leans in to kiss him, but she forgets to take off her cap and hits the boy on the forehead with the visor, while the girl apologizes and murmurs that she only wanted to practice the wedding kiss. Jun Young takes the cap off with a smile. He throws it aside and says that the wedding kiss must be initiated by the groom, and he gently kisses Jun Seol on the lips. The closer the wedding day gets, the more organizational tasks fall upon the protagonist. One day, Hyosok calls her and suggests they go to a furniture store together. There, the woman carefully chooses a bed, while Jun Seol remains timidly on the side. Then they go to a pastry shop to select the perfect cake. When it comes to the wedding dress, the protagonist, upon trying it on, suddenly understands a simple truth. Even though this wedding is based solely on benefit, that doesn't negate the fact that it is real. And even though all this is happening for real, Jun Seol does not feel happy and experiences an emptiness. Aunt Sung Jim is surprised that the girl arrived alone in Hyeoch, without Junjung. She doesn't understand why she and her fiancé didn't come to visit them before the wedding, which is tomorrow. Hearing her, Jun Seol feels invaded by a strange feeling of loneliness. And just at that moment, Junjung appears at the entrance. Smiling at the girl, he takes the heavy box from her hands and apologizes for arriving unannounced. Aunt Sung Jim approaches them, and the protagonist introduces them. Junjung apologizes for not visiting them sooner, but the woman says she isn't offended, and invites him inside. The protagonist watches them smiling, feeling her heart fill with warmth. That night, the whole family sits at the table. Presided over by Grandpa Choi, Sun Young asks Yoon Seol to eat something, but the girl is afraid she won't fit into the dress tomorrow. Yoon Young pleads with the woman not to worry and promises that when they get married, he will make sure his wife eats well. In response, the aunt says she now understands why Yoon Seol said she fell in love with him at first sight. Since Yoon Young noticed he hadn't told her that, the grandfather comforts him, stating that his granddaughter simply doesn't know how to express her feelings. Later, getting ready for bed, the aunt advises Jun Seol not to stay up late and to go to bed early. She gives the same advice to Junjung, who enters the room and thanks the woman for her concern. When she leaves, the protagonist informs the boy that she will sleep in his room tonight, and she will spend the night with the aunt. She apologizes for the mess, justifying herself by saying that she expected him tomorrow morning. Yoon Seol asks why Yoon didn't let her know he was coming. Gently caressing her face, the man replies that his future wife hadn't contacted him all day. Therefore, he had no choice but to come see her in person. Yoon Seol thanks him for coming, and Yoon gently kisses her on the forehead. Without letting go of the girl's hand, he wishes his fiancée good night. On the wedding day, Min Jun came to support his friend, surprised to learn about the event on such short notice. He didn't expect Jun Jun to get married so soon. Just recently, he was complaining about the dates his mother set up for him. Kang rushes to assure his friend that his fiancée has nothing to do with those dates. Since Min Jun wants to know who his friend is marrying, Jun Jun knocks on Jun Seol's door. Jeong Yoon opens the door and tells him the bride isn't ready yet. Although the girl doesn't want to let him in, Jun Jung enters anyway because he wants to see Yoon Seol for a moment. When the protagonist turns around, the man freezes, impressed by her beauty. Reacting, he introduces the bride to his friend and colleague, Minjun, who will officiate the wedding. Then Jun Jung introduces his friend Yoon Seol, Jeong Yoon. Minjun is incredibly happy to finally meet his friend's fiancé. However, Kang reminds him that they must keep this marriage a secret and not mention it at the office. Min Young leaves to get ready for the ceremony, and Jeong I-eun follows him to help Aunt Sung I-eun. The couple is advised to relax a bit, do breathing exercises, and not forget to smile. Nevertheless, Young Young is not nervous at all, which cannot be said for Yoon Seol. The girl is terrified that her lie will be discovered and that she will disappoint her grandfather. Feeling her feet go cold, the protagonist wonders if other brides feel the same emotions. Putting his arms around Yoon Seol's shoulders, Jun Young suggests following Moon Jin's advice and doing breathing exercises, although he doesn't rule out having to touch up her makeup afterward. The heroine, rejecting her fiancé, indignantly asks how he can only think about kisses. Leaving the room, Jun Yang smiles confidently as he managed to get the girl to vent and calm down. Shortly after, he is standing at the altar, waiting for the bride. Jun Seol, with her head modestly bowed, walks towards him on her grandfather's arm. As the heroine walks down the aisle, Jun Yang cannot take his eyes off her. Then he approaches them and, extending his hand, takes the bride from Mr. Choi's hands. Tears of happiness spring to the grandfather's eyes. He tightly squeezes the young couple's hands, letting them know he blesses this marriage. The way he hands over his beloved granddaughter to a man who loves her moves those present to tears. Min Jun reads the speech, and the bride and groom exchange rings. The Kang family is amazed by how good Jun Young and Jun Seol look together, and Min Young asks the groom to kiss the bride, thus sealing their union forever until death. Jun Jung whispers to a tense Yoon Seol to relax and suggests showing everyone the result of their practice. The protagonist cannot deny her embarrassment, as this is the first time she will do this in front of so many people. Jun Jung gently caresses her cheek and whispers to her to just close her eyes. An instant later, the newlyweds melt into a tender kiss. In the evening, after the ceremony, the Kang family along with the young couple head to their house in Seoul. Taejin and Hyo Suk suggest that Jun Seol call them mom and dad from now on. And after wishing the newlyweds good night, they go to sleep. When they leave, the protagonist exhales with relief. The girl suggests Jun Jung shower first, while she unpacks. The heroine enters the room she will now share with her brand new husband. The bed is quite large, and both can fit in it without any problem. Jun Seol didn't have to unpack her clothes, as they are already carefully hung in the shared closet. All of both their personal belongings also rest together on the shelves, making their marriage more palpable. And above all, the presence of Jun Jung, who just came out of the bathroom and suggests his wife do the same. To his question of whether Jun Seol unpacked her things, the young woman replies that her mother already took care of everything. She notices that Jun Jung Young is wearing the pajamas Aunt Sung Jiam gave him, and she gets ready to take out hers, identical. However, upon opening the box, the girl slams it shut, realizing she confused it with Jeong Yoon's gift. Young Young wants to see what's inside, but Yoon Seol tries by all means to prevent him from doing so. When the boy tries to snatch the box from her, it falls to the floor, and very provocative lingerie spills out of it. The protagonist begs him not to look and quickly puts everything away, denying having asked her friend for such a gift. Jun Jong is amused by her reaction and asks what Jun Seol is plotting, embarrassing her even more. She explains that it's the first time she's sharing a room with a man. That's why she tries to be cautious. But Jun Jong reminds her that they are married now and can do whatever they want. With these words, he approaches the girl and draws her close. Then, Jun Yang tenderly kisses Jun Seol, who feels herself blush from embarrassment. At one point, the young woman gives in to the feeling and clings to the man. Suddenly, he starts laughing and says they shouldn't do it, since his parents are still downstairs. Enraged, Jun Seol reminds Jun Yang that, according to the contract, they will not sleep in the same bed. But he, as if not hearing her, asks her to wait until the honeymoon. Later, sitting on the bed, the heroine thinks that being in the same room as him really makes her nervous. But the girl tries to convince herself to treat him only as a roommate. Again and again, she reminds herself of her promise and convinces herself that nothing will happen. Kun Jong suggests to Junseol that she turn off the light, and upon not receiving an answer, he looks up and sees her asleep. He approaches the girl, gently settles her on the pillow, and covers her with a blanket. Then the boy tenderly strokes her face, enjoying watching her sleep peacefully. When the alarm clock rings at 6 on the nightstand, Junseol jumps up. Without understanding when she fell asleep, she notices Junyoung is not on the sofa and looks to the right in dread, discovering he is not in the bed either. Upon going down to the dining room, the maid suggests she wait in the living room, as Mrs. Hyo Seok usually gets up at 6. In a half, the owners of the house come down to the dining room shortly after and are surprised that Junseol woke up so early. The protagonist kindly greets her new family. To the question of whether she slept well in her new home, the young woman thanks her parents for the comfortable bed. Just as Hyo Suk asks why Junyoung is not with Junseol, the boy, drenched after running, enters. The mother scolds him for going to practice, leaving his wife on such an important day. On her first morning at home, the woman pushes him towards the bathroom and orders him to shower quickly. In comeback, hugging Junseol, Hyo Suk congratulates her on the perfect greeting taught by Aunt Sung Jiam and admires her manners. The mother-in-law explains that every morning the maids prepare the ingredients for breakfast, and then she cooks herself. Although Hyo Suk exempts Junseol from household chores while she studies, she insists she will help whenever she can. After a quick breakfast, Junyoung prepares to go to work. Then he kisses Junseol, and the whole family tenderly watches their farewell. Hugging her husband, the protagonist follows him to see him off. Upon reaching the courtyard, Junyoung admires her brilliant performance and initiative. But with his characteristic irony, he doesn't miss the opportunity to say that maybe she only likes her new status. Yoonseol interrupts him, as she actually went out to find out if he slept on the sofa the night before. Yoonyoung begins to complain that, since his wife won't let him sleep in the bed, his whole body hurts. Blushing and looking at him sternly, the protagonist reminds him once again of their agreement. Then she remembers that Yoonyoung called her wicked, and added that she must be very unpleasant for his own wife not to let him sleep next to her. The girl tries to understand if he said that to gain sympathy. She didn't imagine that being his wife would be so difficult, as he is unpredictable and does whatever he wants. And it's only the first day of their life together. Looking at her wedding ring, Yoonseol mentally begs Young to make this marriage tolerable for both. And only now does the girl realize that she has to wear this ring without others noticing it. So she runs to the nearest store and buys several different rings for every finger. Meanwhile, at university, So Kyan asks Jeong-ai where Yoonseol is, and she asks him to calm down. Just then, the protagonist enters the classroom panting, having managed not to be late for class. So Kyan jumps up to greet his friend and cheerfully waves his hand at her. He saved a seat for Yoonseol between himself and Young-ai, who is glad not to have to answer his questions anymore. So Kyan wants to know if the protagonist is okay, because she not only looks weird, but she has never been late before. The girl tries to convince her friend that she is actually fine, and that she was late simply because she moved. To the question of where, Junseol vaguely replies that it is quite far, 40 minutes by car from the university. Sakyeon doesn't understand why she did that, since her former residence was close to campus. Yoon comes to the protagonist's aid, explaining that Junseol's grandfather was worried about her living alone, and that's why he moved her in with some relatives. As soon as the girl celebrates that the interrogation is over, Sakyeon asks her since when she started wearing so many rings. The protagonist freezes, afraid of being discovered on her first day. But Sakyeon answers his own question, only surprised that Junseol suddenly decided to follow trends. Just as the girl starts to get indignant, defending her right to follow fashion, Junjung enters the room. The man sternly watches as Sakyeon takes his wife's hand. Junjung returns home at midnight. Closing the door behind him, he suddenly hears Junseol's voice, asking if he always comes home so late. Junjung thought the girl was already asleep, but she hasn't gone to bed yet, as she needs to finish an assignment. Taking off his jacket, the man asks with a smile if Yoonseol deliberately studies there, instead of in his office, in order to receive her from work. However, she advises him not to be so conceited. Although the heroine vehemently denies it, Yun insists that she doesn't have to wait up for him late, and she can go to bed earlier. Just as she runs after him, assuring him that she wasn't expecting him, His phone rings with a shrill tone. Seeing that it is Seol Kyan, Yun Seol gets angry, not understanding why he is calling her so late at night. The girl rejects the call, saying the number is unknown and that it's surely scammers. But the phone persists with its calls, so Young advises her to answer, as it could be something urgent. To Seo Kyung's surprise at the rejected call, the heroine, annoyed, suggests he look at the time it is. When she asks him what important thing he has to tell her, the boy starts talking about the club he joined. Jun Sul is so irritated by this meaningless talk that she decides to cut him off, stating she cannot talk now. To the question of whether she now shares a room with someone, the heroine replies that you could say yes, and begs him not to call her at this hour. After hanging up, she tells Jun Young that, as he imagined, the call was not important, and she decides to go to sleep right away. To his question of whether they are roommates now, Jun Seol replies yes and wishes him good night. Jun Jung doesn't answer anything and follows her with his gaze, lost in thought. The next morning, as usual, he goes for a run in the park. Jun Seol wakes up at 6 in the morning, and again Jun Jung is not in the room. She worries that he is sleeping on the sofa, as he gets up so early and returns so late. Obviously exhausted, several days have passed since Jun Jung told Jun Seol not to wait up for him at night. Today, returning again at midnight, he enters the room and sees that the girl is already asleep. Her phone is next to her, and Jun Jung wonders if she had been talking to Seo Kyon before sleeping. Angry, the man roughly takes off his tie and heads to the shower. Back in the room, Jun Jung can't stand it and, approaching the sleeping Jun Seol, silently tries to take the phone out of her hand. But the protagonist wakes up and looks surprised at the man suspended above her. He tries to justify himself, assuring her it's not what it looks like. He just wanted to put the phone on the nightstand. Suddenly, Jun Seol suggests to Jun Jung that he sleep in the bed, as she thinks it cruel to force him to suffer on the sofa. According to the girl, she wrote that rule thinking they would have separate beds. However, now it seems unfair to her that only she sleeps in a normal bed. Young asks her if she is sure about that. He affirms that he does not want to scare her and promises that he will not try anything. Turning around, Young Sol says she is not scared, just uncomfortable in the position they are in now. Young smiles and moves to the other side of the bed. Warning her with a smile that she kicks in her sleep, the protagonist turns on her side. Turning around, the girl is amazed at herself for having allowed that man to sleep with her. She tries to calm down and imagine it's just something. However, just as Yun Seol manages to calm down a little, Jun Yang grabs her by the waist and abruptly pulls her towards him. The girl demands an explanation for what all this means, but he calmly replies that now she surely won't kick. Also, now, holding her close, Jun Yang can be sure that she won't go to sleep on the sofa when he falls asleep. Only a couple of minutes pass, and the protagonist falls asleep, lulled by the warmth of his strong arms. In the morning, Jun Yang goes for a run, and the memories of the previous night's events spin in his head. Surprised to find himself smiling unintentionally, he stops, coughs, and continues running. When he returns home, from the door he asks Yoon Seol what time she is going to the university, and suggests they go together. However, when Yoon enters the room, he discovers that the girl is not there. Seeing her son searching for his wife all over the house, Hye-suk tells him that Yoon Seol went to the university early to study. The woman finds it strange that the girl didn't tell Yoon, but he remains silent, thoughtful. After meeting up with her friends and getting a takeout iced coffee at the cafe, Yoon Seol drinks it with delight. To Seo Kyung's question about whether she slept poorly last night, the girl replies that it is he who keeps calling her late at night. In reality, the protagonist's thoughts are occupied with the previous night, since yesterday she and Jun Young slept together for the first time. Yoon Seol doesn't understand how she managed to fall asleep so quickly. Was she so comfortable next to him that she relaxed so fast? But the heroine didn't know how to behave with Jun Jung in the morning, so she woke up early and went straight to the university while he was running. Seo Kyan starts bombarding Jun Seol with questions about who her roommate is, and if she is pretty. He wants to meet her and asks her age, but the protagonist replies with irritation that she is older than them. The boy insists that he likes older girls, and Jeong-I-un decides to intervene, saying she knows the neighbor Yoon Seol. The protagonist realizes that her friend is describing Yoon Young when talking about a brunette neighbor. Tall. But after that talk, Seo Kyan becomes even more obsessed with meeting the mysterious neighbor. Just then, Professor Kang interrupts the scene, greeting his students with a smile. Yoon Seol freezes upon seeing him. Jeong-yoon whispers that they named the devil, and he appeared. And Seo-kyeon, oblivious to everything, happily responds to the greeting. Hun-jong stares intently at the protagonist, and that look deeply unsettles her. While the professor talks with the student, Jeong-yoon jokingly whispers to her friend that Seo-kyeon will finally meet his neighbor. Suddenly, the boy realizes that the professor is wearing a wedding ring and is very surprised to learn he is married. Upon hearing this, Yun-seol turns around in a panic and sees that Jun-young is completely bewildered. Jeong-yoon saves the situation again. She interrupts the conversation, saying that those rings are given to soldiers during military service. Seo-kyeon comments that wearing rings is fashionable, and showing Yun-seol's hand adds that even she follows trends. Turning to the protagonist, he asks if she told him last night on the phone that some guys from her club also wear rings. Jung-young silently listens to how the boy provokes Jung-yoon by talking at night with Jung-seol. And not with her. The protagonist notices with surprise that, by saying that, he seems quite upset. That night at home, she asks Jung-young why he wears the ring if they were almost caught. But the boy reminds her that she doesn't take hers off either. The girl explains that she wears several at once to avoid arousing suspicion. Jun-jung maliciously asks if she does that because she's worried Seo-kyeon might see her engagement ring. But when Jun-seol replies that Seo-kyeon doesn't care, he starts to retort, but suddenly falls silent. Suddenly, Jun-jung takes the girl's hand and begs her never to take off her engagement ring. Jun-seol blushes and asks why he acts like this, and why he seems to be playing with her feelings. The man reminds her that, according to the contract, she is now his wife. The protagonist, in turn, reminds him that they agreed not to mix this marriage with feelings. But now she doubts and wants to know if he is really sure he is not giving in to his feelings. Jung-young always believed that feelings in marriage are not mandatory, and simply fulfilling the duties of a husband is enough. He believed that even without love, a married couple can exist perfectly. But now all those thoughts keep him from sleeping. In the morning, Hyesuk asks when and where the newlyweds plan to go on their honeymoon trip. Jun-sol informs her that they are going to the island of Guam. The parents approve of that choice and ask if they plan the trip for the beginning of summer. The newlyweds confirm their assumption, as they plan to leave as soon as Jun-sol finishes her exams. Then Hyesuk suggests they go shopping this weekend to prepare. As planned, the protagonist goes shopping with her mother-in-law over the weekend. The saleswoman admires the girl's beauty, on whom any garment looks good. Hyesuk buys Jun-seol all the outfits, although she insists she doesn't need so many formal suits in Guam. The woman insists on equipping her daughter-in-law for the trip. She can buy whatever she wants there herself. She likes the dress on the girl so much that she suggests she not take it off and go like that directly. Leaving the store, the mother-in-law suggests to Yun-seol that they have dinner together, and she happily accepts. Suddenly, Aunt Yo-suk is called from behind. When she and the protagonist turn around, they see Soo-jin in front of them. The girl is so surprised to see Yun-seol next to Yo-suk that she doesn't hide it at all. Understanding the seriousness of the situation, the protagonist pulls herself together and greets her friend. Hyesuk remembers that her daughter-in-law wanted to keep her marriage with Jun-jung a secret until graduation. So she nods when Jun-seol explains that Mrs. Kang was a friend of her mother, and they met by chance. Soo-jin asks if she knew Mrs. Kang was nearby. She feigns surprise, and Hyesuk pretends not to know that he teaches girls. Soo-jin offers Mrs. Kang dinner together, but the latter politely declines, citing a planned family dinner. But the girl insists on inviting herself, not wanting to miss the opportunity to have dinner with Jun-jung. While Hyesuk desperately thinks how to get rid of her Jean, Yoon-seol wonders how she can be so persistent. Taking the initiative, she says goodbye, claiming she has to finish a group project at the university. Hyesuk watches her leave with regret, while her Jean bombards her with excited questions about dinner. The protagonist waits at the stop, wondering where to go now, since she told her mother-in-law she had a project. First of all, Jun-seol decides to inform Hyo-suk that she will return after dinner, so she doesn't worry about her. Strolling through the night city, the protagonist thinks that Soo-jin must be really close to the Kang family. Maybe she made a mistake and should have joined them. Suddenly, Jun-seol hears a car brake behind her. Seo-kyeon gets out of it, who at first didn't even recognize his friend. The boy was driving home an acquaintance, a contemporary dance ballerina, and on the way back he noticed Yoon-seol. He asks why she is dressed like that, assuming she was going on a blind date. The protagonist flatly denies it, but Seo-kyeon insists. and asks if she has a boyfriend. He doesn't stop and asks where Yoon-seol is going, but the girl just stays silent. Then, Seo Kyung takes her hand and suggests they have dinner together. Jun Young is at work when Yo Seok sends a message to her son with the name of the restaurant where she is inviting him. He asks Min Young about the place, and he tells him that the restaurant is quite popular for romantic dates. A very famous chef cooks there, and it is very difficult to book a table there. His friend assumes that Jun Young's mother perhaps prepared a surprise there for him. And Jun Seol, the man jumps up from his chair instantly and warmly thanking Min Jun, announces that he will leave early today. On his way to the restaurant, he thinks that Jun Seol, after yesterday's fight, must be trying to show her mother that everything is fine. And this dinner could be an excellent opportunity to cheer her up. Excited by this pleasant thought, he enters the VIP room. Jun Young greets his mother and is about to sit next to the girl sitting opposite her. And only now does he realize that it is not Jun Seol at all, but Sujin, who radiates happiness to be close to him. While Jun Young stares at his mother, who doesn't know how to explain, Sujin starts telling how she met Hyo Suk. She talks non-stop about how they ran into her student Junseol, but Jun Young is no longer listening. Taking out his phone, he texts the protagonist to find out where she is and offers to pick her up. Without even a couple of minutes passing, Jun Young apologizes and, excusing himself with business, prepares to leave. He leaves the restaurant, repeatedly dialing Yoon Seol's number, but for some reason she doesn't answer. When the girl finally answers the call, Jun Young anxiously asks if everything is fine with her. However, the protagonist replies that she will be late home and asks him not to worry, since she is having dinner with a friend near campus. But Jun Young overhears the voice of Seo Kyun in the background, asking if he is talking to his roommate, and that makes him uneasy. Meanwhile, Seo Kyun scolds Jun Seol for not offering her roommate to join them, since he was dying to meet her. To get out of the situation, the protagonist declares that her roommate is not good enough for a guy like him. She won't promise anything, but maybe someday she will introduce them. Satisfied with the answer, Seo Kyun heads to the bathroom to wash up. Jun Seol calls him, thanking the boy, and he, smiling, replies that that's how true friends act. Waiting for Seo Kyun from the bathroom, the protagonist realizes that she forgot to put on her other rings, leaving only the wedding ring. After thinking about it for a moment, she takes it off her ring finger. Since the day of her wedding to Jun Jong, this is the first time she has done this, and that's why she now feels a very strange sensation. When the waitress approaches the table, Yoon Seol discreetly throws the ring into her purse. Finally, upon hearing Seo Kyun's footsteps behind her, the protagonist scolds him for taking so long and suggests they start eating. However, instead of him, she suddenly sees Jun Jung, who finally managed to find her. The man seems to have searched all the restaurants in the area, but the girl still doesn't understand how he managed to find her. At that moment, Seok Yoon returns to the table, and what a surprise to see the professor. To Young Young's question of whether he is interrupting their date, he replies no, that he just saw Yoon Seol walking alone on campus. She looked so distressed, despite her beautiful dress, that he decided to cheer her up by inviting her to dinner. Young Young calls him a great friend, but our protagonist warns Seok Yoon that if he doesn't shut up, she will leave. But suddenly, in his typical playful tone, he offers to feed Jun Seol so she doesn't get angry. Casting a worried look at Jun Jung, the heroine sharply replies that she can do it herself. And the man, who is actually her husband, watches the scene with an expressionless face, making her feel even more uncomfortable. After dinner, Seok Yoon offers to take Jun Seol home, thinking she shouldn't travel by bus in that outfit. The protagonist fails to convince him, so Jun Jung declares that he will take her, since he is going in the same direction. Seok Hyun is surprised that, unlike him, even the professor knows where Yoon Seol lives. But Kang says he only saw her around his neighborhood. The boy entrusts his friend to the man, while she thinks that he is too careless. Seok Hyun thanks the professor, and saying goodbye heads to his car, which he left near campus. But when Yoon Seol is left alone with Jun Jung, she suggests that he return alone, promising to come back later. The man doesn't understand. Did she think he only came to eat? He didn't leave her a choice, ignoring her calls and having dinner with someone else. The protagonist repeats that Seo Kyun is just a friend, unlike Sujin, who is too close to Hyo Seok. To Jun Jung's question of whether she rejected dinner with his mother out of jealousy, she replies that she was just trying to keep her marriage secret. Also, she didn't want to worry her mother, so now she's going to take a walk and will return when Yosak is asleep. For a moment, Yun Young silently watches Yun Seol walk away. Suddenly, he catches up with her at a fast pace and takes her hand. The girl doesn't understand why Yun Young is behaving this way, but even more so, the protagonist doesn't understand why she feels so happy now. Yun Seol is curious to know what is really going on in his head when he holds her hand like that. Suddenly, the girl is distracted from those endless thoughts by Jun Yong's intense gaze. Abruptly raising Yun Seol's hand, he demands an explanation for why she took off her wedding ring. According to the protagonist, Seo Kyung is too perceptive and might suspect something, since she forgot to put on her other rings. She asks Jun Yong to calm down and extends the ring to him. The boy silently takes it and puts it back on her finger. Then, also silently, he takes Yun Seol's hand again and continues their walk in the park. Noticing a rose arch nearby, the protagonist runs towards it and suggests to Yun Yang that he inhale that wonderful scent. Looking at her smile, the man suddenly freezes, feeling his heart pound. He suddenly realizes that he wants to be the only one Yun Seol wants to run to when she needs to hide from everyone. He wants her smile to be destined only for him. He wants to know absolutely everything about her, as intensely as he wants to suppress those feelings. But his body seems not to obey him, like a swarm of butterflies trying to escape its cage. And this is, obviously, that suppression of feelings that Yun Seol spoke of. The protagonist smiles and says that it smells like her dorm room here. When she left home, it also smelled like this, but now it must smell like barbecue smoke. After smelling Junjung, the girl says that it still smells like roses, probably because she spent less time at the restaurant. Looking into the man's eyes, she asks if he smells that scent. However, Junjung seems not to hear her, as he only thinks about how much he wants Yoonseol to belong only to him. Hugging the girl by the waist, he leans towards her and they melt into a long and tender kiss. Junjung feels butterflies in his stomach, fluttering freely and illuminating everything with a magical glow. Summer arrived, time for vacation and honeymoon, where the newlyweds will be alone for the first time. But spending 3 hours with Junjung on a plane is not easy, especially after what happened a few weeks ago. A lot of time has passed since that kiss, but they haven't even talked about it. And now Junseol doesn't know if that kiss meant anything to Junjung. The flight attendants approach the man to ask if he needs anything. Junjung is already tired of their insistent attention, so he asks Junseol to help him with that. The man pulls the girl towards him to show the interested flight attendants that he is married. The rest of the trip they fly embraced, enjoying each other's closeness. Finally arriving at their hotel in Guam, Junseol observes the room with enthusiasm. The sea view from the terrace takes her breath away. Entering the bedroom, the heroine blushes upon seeing the enormous bridal bed decorated with rose petals. Noticing the girl's sudden silence, Jun Yang approaches and, taking her by the shoulders, asks if everything is fine. Jun Seol replies nervously that she was just admiring the room. Taking Jun Yang's hand, the girl rushes to show him the impressive terrace. She excitedly imagines enjoying the sunsets from there, without thinking about studies or work. The man did not expect such enthusiasm from her, but Yoonseol sees nothing strange in it. It's vacation, and she has to like it. A little embarrassed, she adds that she is actually happy too, because finally they can enjoy their honeymoon. According to her, lately they have been so busy that they haven't even been able to talk peacefully. Looking into Jun Yang's eyes, Jun Seol confesses that she wants to get closer to him. After those words, the man's heart starts beating faster. However, he jokes and asks her if she means physical intimacy. Upon hearing that answer, Jun Seol turns around and, returning to the room, suggests Jun Yang forget about it. The protagonist thinks that maybe she is the only one in the couple who feels something like that, and that for him, everything is just a simple game. But Jun Yang catches up with her and, grabbing her hand, apologizes for the stupid joke. Jun Seol replies that she was joking too, since this honeymoon is just a formality. Unable to resist any longer, the man pulls her towards him, hugs her tightly, and tells her that it is not like that at all. Then, looking her in the eyes, he confesses that he also wants intimacy. The protagonist hugs Jun Yang, feeling incredibly happy. Jun Seol enters the bathroom to change, but she takes too long, and the husband asks if everything is all right. The girl replies that her mother has very good taste, but she doesn't feel comfortable wearing what Hyesuk chose for her. When Junjung opens the door, the protagonist screams and covers herself. The girl's swimsuit turns out to be quite revealing, and she is embarrassed to go out on the beach like that. Upon seeing Junseol like that, the man also turns bright red. Covering her with a shirt, he reassures her and tells her that she doesn't have to wear something uncomfortable, just out of respect for her mother. In response, the protagonist suggests not going to the beach, but getting into the jacuzzi, since she doesn't mind if only he sees her. Even redder, Jun-young suggests simply buying Junseol another swimsuit, and he leaves the bathroom. And so, after a while, the couple is walking along the shore, holding hands. Cuddling up to Jun-young, the girl tells him things about herself. Then they enter a cafe to have a cocktail and continue the conversation. Jun-sol talks about Jeong-yoon, who knows absolutely everything about her, and Jun-young jokes that he will be able to get all her secrets out of her. The protagonist sees no point in that if she herself can answer his questions, and the man loves to hear that because he wants to know everything about her. Jun-young wants to kiss Jun-sol, but at that moment, she suddenly hears someone speaking Korean nearby. The girl looks around, afraid that someone might recognize them. Jun-jong doesn't understand the panic if they are thousands of kilometers from home. Jun-sol, visibly worried, says she will go to the bathroom for a moment and promises to return immediately. When she leaves, the man sighs deeply. While washing his face, the protagonist thinks about whether she bothered Jun-young too much by interrupting him so suddenly. Even though they have already kissed several times, after that kiss in the park, everything feels like something completely different. With her heart pounding, the protagonist remembers how the next day she shared her feelings with her friend. According to Young I-eun, the excuses for their practice kisses are silly, and they do it because they like each other. The girl insisted that that last kiss was moved by instinct and nothing more. And when the protagonist asked if Kyung-yoon believed that Jun-young felt the same way, her friend smiled. She was happy to hear that her dear Jun-seol had finally fallen in love with someone. Gathering her thoughts and accepting her feelings, the protagonist cheerfully returns to the table where she left Jun-young. However, her enthusiasm quickly fades because next to her husband, Sujin is holding onto his arm. Seeing Junseol, the girl asks if she is resting there with Jeong-yoon. Initially taken aback, the protagonist quickly regains composure and greets her classmate as if nothing is wrong. She complains that she only came for a modeling photo shoot, although she would love to simply relax. Holding Junseol's glass, Sujin won't stop talking about how happy she is to find Jun-young there, who even ordered her favorite drink. To top it off, and to be alone with the boy, she tells him to go look for Jun-yoon. Just then, the person in charge of the shoot approaches and asks her to change and touch up her makeup. But she doesn't give up. She drags Jun-jung to see her pose and meet the crew. He tries to get away by saying he already had plans with someone else. Sujin doubts it's Miss Choi, and she confirms it, wishing them well. Yun-young leaves after her, casting a sad look at Yun-seol. Upon arriving at the set, he meets the photographer, who mistakes him for a model. He suggests joining the shoot. He says he has everything needed. Sujin approaches them and asks Kang how she looks. He compliments her and asks if he can leave now, but she doesn't even listen to him and keeps showing off. Tired of this, Yun-young apologizes and, saying he is expected elsewhere, leaves, wishing Sujin good luck. Nevertheless, the girl persistently grabs his arm, wondering why he doesn't want to watch the shoot. Seeing them together, the photographer comments that they make a good couple and offers them a shoot if they get married. Resolutely declaring that he is not interested, Yun-young finally shakes off his clingy girl's grasp. Returning to where he left Yun-seol, the man cannot find her there. She is not in the girl's room either, so he decides to call her. However, when dialing the number, he hears her phone ringing from the bathroom. Realizing that Yun-seol forgot to take her phone, Jun-young feels his heart break. The previous time, after accidentally running into his clingy girl, the girl fled and ended up having dinner with Seo Kyung. But this time is different. Seo Kyung is not here, and the man cannot contact Yun-seol, nor does he have any idea where to look for her. But suddenly the door opens, and the protagonist enters the room. A worried Jun-young runs towards her, but the girl calms him down and shows him a bag with a new swimsuit, for which she went to the store. To his question about why she didn't notify him, Jun-seol replies that she couldn't, since he was with his clingy girl, but that she understands everything. Jun-young grabs the girl by the shoulders and hugs her tightly. He confesses that he was worried and asks if these are one of those feelings she told him about. Yoon-seol has trouble breathing. Her heart beats wildly. She recalls Jeong-yoon's words that she only needs to admit that Yoon-young and she are crazy about each other. Without saying a word, the protagonist raises her arms and hugs him tightly in response. A knock is heard at the door, followed by Sujin's voice, asking if Kang is there. Yoon Seol doesn't understand why she is here, but Yoon affirms that he did not invite her, and suggests simply ignoring the uninvited guest and continuing as they were. He asks her not to think about it, although Sujin keeps knocking insistently on the door. Deciding that Junjung might have just stepped out, the girl finally leaves. Meanwhile, Junseol asks him how she cannot think about it. Sujin almost caught them together, and that could be a problem because if she knows, everyone at the university will know. Besides, the protagonist is sure that this girl really likes Young. Gently caressing Junseol's face, the man replies that he doesn't care about her clingy girl at all. They are here to spend their honeymoon, so Young asks the protagonist to focus on him, not on that girl. Leaning towards her, he begs Young Seol never to leave him again. After that, their lips melt into a long and tender kiss. Junjung looks into Junseol's eyes, lifts her up, and carries her towards the bed. Upon waking up, he tells her it is still early. Suggesting they stay in bed a little longer, she jumps up suddenly, panicked by remembering the previous night. Junjung, with a mischievous smile, offers to refresh her memory if she has already forgot. He hugs her tightly, longing to prolong this moment as much as possible. So close, she hears the beating of his heart, a melody that envelops her in peace and warmth. She feels their hearts synchronize, as if merging into one being. The honeymoon comes to an end, and Junyoung and Junseol prepare to return to Seoul. Before leaving, she steps out onto the terrace. Determined to call her grandfather, Junyoung wraps his arms around her from behind, suggesting they greet the grandfather together to calm his worries. Mr. Choi and Uncle Jai Lion are happy to hear from Junseol, but Aunt Sung Jiam is furious about her not having called sooner. Junyoung apologizes for his absence, justifying it by saying they were busy with a lot of things. The aunt asks if the young couple wants to announce any good news, which greatly embarrasses the protagonist. However, Junyoung, with a calm smile, asks Mrs. Sung Jiam not to worry about that, since they are working on it. The grandfather is very happy to see that the newlyweds are well together and says goodbye, wishing them a good flight. After hanging up the phone, Yoon Seol thanks Young for the happiness with which her grandfather is now filled. The man, with a smile, asks the girl about herself. The protagonist confesses that she is happy to see her grandfather happy. Back in Seoul, Yoon Seol and Young head to a cafe to meet Jeong-yoon. Yoon, the girl, doesn't miss the opportunity to joke about how both look like a real couple returning from their honeymoon. After looking closely at her friend, she tells her that she looks rejuvenated. Then suddenly, she drops the key question: what happened between them in Guam? To change the subject radically, Young asks the girls for permission to wait with them for Min-jun. Sitting across from Jeong-eun, he asks if it's true that she knows so much about his wife that she could find out everything. And she confirms it, smiling mischievously and seeking to provoke her. He asks if it is true that Junseol kissed 108 times. The protagonist begs her friend to shut up, while she dies laughing. Stopping laughing, Jeong-eun reveals that, before her wedding, Junseol had never had a relationship. Turning to Junyoung, the girl explains that she was very angry that day, and that's why she exaggerated the story. When Min-jun approaches the table, she sighs with relief. This conversation is finally over. The boy greets the girls and apologizes for having to take Junyoung away for a moment. Junseol gently pushes her husband, promising to see him at home shortly. When they leave, Young-yoon again bothers her friend about the 180 kisses. Afterwards, she asks if Junseol wore her gift, which exasperates the girl even more. The protagonist asks her to listen to her and tells her how in Guam they ran into Sujin, who now believes she was there with Jeong-yoon. Her friend doesn't believe the girl intentionally chased Junyoung and thinks it was rather a coincidence. Junseol believes it too, as they haven't crossed paths since that day. In any case, that's not the point now, and the protagonist just wants Jeong-yoon to do her a favor. At that moment, the girl's phone rings. Learning that Yoon Seol has returned from Guam, Seo Hyun tells her he has good news for her. The boy suggests his friend do an internship with him. The day Seo Hyun had a blind date, the girl he told Yoon Seol about offered him a paid internship at a friend's company. Upon hearing that, Kyung-yoon asks if he also intends to offer it to her. Learning that the girls are having fun alone, Seo Kyung complains why they didn't invite him. While they argue, Yoon Seol thinks it's not a bad idea, but hesitates whether to tell Junyoung. That night at home, The protagonist researches the company Seo Kyung mentioned, and she loves it. Upon getting out of the shower, Jun Young is surprised that the girl is not yet sleeping. Yun Seol is uncomfortable that her husband is always shirtless, but he sees nothing wrong with it, since it is also his room. Yun Young teases the girl, but she asks him not to, since Jeong Yoon already annoyed her enough today. The man asks if her friend asked about her gift. After an affirmative answer, he asks if Yun Seol regrets not having worn it on their honeymoon. Yun Young goes to kiss his wife, but she stops him because she wants to talk about something. She says she is not sure she needs his permission, but she is going to do the internship. Jun Young doesn't understand why the hell she needs to do something like that. The protagonist tries to explain that she wants to be productive during the holidays. She will help later. She is sure that he, as a professor, should understand how crucial this is. Jun Young offers to have her intern at his company, but she wants to stand on her own 2 feet. Seeing that the girl is inflexible, he gives in, but he wants something in return for this. The protagonist knows what her husband is getting at and jokes that she won't give him a penny. The next day, Yun Seol meets Seo Kyeon at a cafe. She is furious. The boy arrives late because he overslept. She plans to tell him what she found out about the company he told her about, but Seo Kyeon suddenly declares that they will no longer need it. Yun Seol thinks he regretted it, as she decided to laze around for the rest of the summer. But the boy announces that Mr. Khan's company opened an internship program, and since their group had the highest grade on the previous project, they were assigned there. Seo Kyeon considers it incredible luck to have been in the same group as Jun Seol. The protagonist understands that behind all this is definitely Jun Young, and he managed to overcome her. The next morning, at breakfast, Jun Seol informs her parents that she will start an internship that will last until the end of the summer. Hyo Suk worries that her daughter-in-law is doing this because Jun Young doesn't give her enough money. But the girl affirms that she needs experience for her future career. Tae-jin offers to contact this corporation to make sure it is in good hands. But Jun Young replies that there is no need, since Jun Seol and her groupmates will intern at his company. The parents are very happy to hear this, as they are now relieved. When Jun Jung leaves the house, the heroine demands an explanation. According to her, he cannot do whatever he pleases just because he is a professor. But Jun Jung doesn't remember agreeing to her internship, nor forcing her to do it at his company. And he doesn't understand why she blames him for always wanting to be close to his wife. Jun Seol asks him that, in that case, to promise not to single her out among the other interns. Jun Young happily accepts this condition, and so the students leave for their first day of internship at Taeho Corporation. The group is welcomed by Young-mi, who will be their supervisor during the internship, and she tells them that her company specializes in hotel and resort planning. Currently, they are working together with a hotel that will soon open its doors in Yongsan, and the company expects the interns' help over the next month. The girl suggests the students ask any questions that concern them, and Seo Kyeon raises his hand. He wants to know Youngmi's age, but she, laughing, asks him to stick to work matters. Just then, a woman approaches and adds that personal matters are left outside of working hours. Youngmi introduces everyone to Mr. Junyoung Kan's personal secretary, Hae Jongjan. After greeting the students, the girl asks Yun Seol and Seo Kyeon to follow her to the director's office. On the way to Yun Yun's office, the protagonist curiously observes his impressive office. The secretary announces to Mr. Khan that the students have arrived and invites them in. Yun Seol feels a certain nervousness. It is the first time she sees her husband at work. Yun Yun welcomes the students to his company, Sav, and hopes that during the internship they learn a lot and gain valuable experience. Seo Kyung promises to work hard and make the most of this opportunity, for which he thanks Mr. Kan. And when the boy says they were lucky, as they almost entered another company, Jun Young discovers that Jun Seol and he originally planned to intern together. The innocent Seo Kyung, with his hand on the girl's shoulder, jokes that his friend is lost without him. The protagonist removes his hand, and Jun Young, wishing him luck, offers to consult Jun for any doubts. Leaving the office, Yun Seol looks at her husband, but he doesn't even look up. She feels the cold emanating from him, but assumes that Jun Young is just acting as she asked. Young-mi asked Yun Seol to fetch last year's project documents, but the girl cannot find them. Seo Kyeon, who approaches her, finds the correct folder in seconds. He gently taps his friend's head with the folder, advises her to eat something to concentrate, and Jun Young, who enters the archive at that moment, witnesses the scene. Seok Hyun hopes he didn't hit Jun Seol too hard, but the girl irritably tells him to take his hands off her. Jun Young continues to observe what is happening from under his brow. The protagonist goes to the kitchen to make herself a coffee and cheer up a bit, and at that moment, she hears her husband's voice. Jun Young asks Secretary Jun to change today's meeting from 4 to 8 a.m. tomorrow. Jun Seol bows to him, as is proper when greeting the director, but he walks past, completely ignoring her. The protagonist doesn't understand why he pretends not to see her. She is even more bewildered seeing Jun Young greet other employees. Min Jun passes by her and greets Jun Seol in a low voice. The heroine is increasingly furious with her husband's behavior. She only asked not to be singled out among the other interns, not to be ignored, and not to be smiled at. Sitting at her desk, Jun Seol overhears other girls commenting on how gallant Mr. Kang is, and how lucky his future wife will be. It infuriates her that Jun Young behaves so kindly to others, but ignores her. He told her he wanted to be by her side. However, now he doesn't even return her greetings. Yun Yang has been so busy lately that Yun Seol hasn't been able to see him, and only contacts her when it suits him. The protagonist convinces herself, once again, that doing the internship here was a terrible idea. Yang Mi asks Yun Seol to go get coffee and bring 2 iced Americanos, 1 hot cappuccino, and 2 iced lattes. Handing the card to the girl, she begs her not to make a mistake and to also get something for herself. And for Seo Kyeon, leaving the office, Yun Seol tells herself to focus on the internship and stop imagining things. She is sure that all those thoughts will not lead to anything good and will only make things worse. Approaching the elevator, the girl sees it is closing and asks them to hold the door. Rushing inside, Yun Seol runs into Yun Yang there. Seeing his cold facial expression, the girl feels uncomfortable. Jun Jung indifferently asks if she is going up and which floor she needs to go to. Yoon Seol doesn't understand why he acts so distant, even in private. Finally, the heroine decides to ask if she has bothered him in any way. In response, Jun Jung asks why she hid from him that she planned to intern with Seo Kyeon. Taking his hand, Yoon Seol indignantly asks why he always brings up Seo Kyeon, and if he thinks there is something between them. Jun Young sees nothing strange in a husband being bothered by learning his wife spends time with another man. At that moment, the elevator door opens and the person they were just talking about appears in front of them. Jun Young greets him and immediately says goodbye, exiting the elevator. Turning to Yun Seol, Seo Kyeon notices tears in her eyes. Jun Young hears the boy ask why the girl is crying. He turns around, while Seo Kyeon tries to figure out if something happened or if she feels unwell. But just as Yoon returns to the elevator, the door closes in his face. The man's heart clenches, thinking about what he just messed up. Not understanding why he left Yoon Seo waves with Seo Kyeon, Yoon runs to the stairs. Upon reaching the cafe, he sees her ordering a coffee with her buddy. At that moment his phone rings, and upon answering, Yoon says he is already on his way, and that he will arrive soon. Seo Kyeon suggests the protagonist go home early if she feels unwell, but she repeats, once again, that she is fine. Since Jeong Yoon is not here, the guy offers to look after Yun Seol, but she asks him to stop being so dramatic. The friends get into the elevator, which turns out to be too full. Due to the crowding, Seo Kyeon presses against the protagonist. He asks her if she is too uncomfortable, but Yun Seol replies that everything is fine. The girl turns around, and Soo Kyeon feels himself starting to blush being so close to her. Returning home at night, Yoongjung finds his wife already in bed and asks if she is sleeping. But Jun Seol doesn't turn around. The man takes off his jacket, lies down next to her, and hugs the girl tightly. He is not sure if she is sleeping or faking it to avoid talking to him, but he wants Jun Seol to know one thing. Just as she hates Soojin surrounding him, he cannot stand Sukyeon constantly being close to her. After saying this, Junjung falls asleep, without letting go of his wife. The next day, Youngmi asks Jun Seol to collect the contract from the secretary. Hai Junjun hands her the documents and points out that she is very lucky, as the director managed to sign them before leaving. According to her, Mr. Kang has an important meeting today, and Mr. Minjun will substitute him in the meeting with the representatives of Hotel M. Jun Seol wonders if Junjung is still angry with her, as she hasn't seen him since yesterday's conversation in the elevator. Just before the meeting with the clients, the protagonist discovers that the folder Secretary Jun gave her is empty. The girl doesn't understand how that could have happened and frantically searches for the documents, while Youngmi rushes her. Someone suggests reprinting the contract, but it's impossible since that draft was signed by the director. Seok Hyun manages to contact someone in the office who saw the contract near Jun Sol's desk. Apparently, it did fall out of the folder, and while everyone else celebrates, the protagonist thinks about how clumsy she is. Jangmi also admits her fault. She should have checked that everything was in order before coming, but she asks Jun Sol to be more careful next time. Seok Hyun already asked if someone from the office could bring the contract, but everyone replied that they are very busy. Jun Sol is going to go back for the documents herself, since it was her fault. But Jangmi is worried it will take too long. Seo Kyung volunteers, since he came by car. That night, the employees go to a bar to celebrate the successful deal and propose a toast to their savior. Seo Kyung, according to Jangmi, if it weren't for him, they might all have lost their jobs today. Min Jun points out that everyone gave an excellent presentation, and the clients were satisfied. Jun Sol is still worried about almost ruining everything, but Seo Kyun tells her to relax. In the end, they succeeded. Just then, Director Kang joins his coworkers. He announces that, to celebrate the excellent work, all drinks are on him. Filling his glass, Jun Young comments that they are lucky to have an intern like Seo Kyun. The boy replies laughing that he promised not to disappoint him. And Youngmi, noticing that he and the director are close, asks if they knew each other before. Seo Kyun tells the girl that Mr. Kang taught classes in his course. Youngmi didn't know that, and, assuming many female students must have pursued him, quietly asks if the director has a girlfriend. Junjung replies that he has no one, and the girl is embarrassed that he heard her. Since the director isn't bothered by those questions, Youngmi wants to know if he likes someone. Young Seol watches Young curiously, awaiting his answer instantly. But he says he's not sure and doesn't think anyone likes him either. Young-mi doesn't believe him and asks Young Seol for her opinion on the matter. Young puts meat on the protagonist's plate and asks her opinion, but Seo Kyun interrupts, saying Kang shouldn't be serving food to Young Seol. That's his job. Youngmi admires how he always takes care of his friend and assumes they are very close. Turning to Kang, she asks if he doesn't think those two are dating. Seo Kyung bursts out laughing and, hugging the girl, says he has repeated 1,000 times that they are just friends. And then Young blurts out that, in his opinion, a man and a woman cannot just be friends, especially if there is a beauty like Young Seol nearby. Aware that she is making things worse, the protagonist notices that Mr. Kang seems to have had too much to drink. She claims to believe in platonic friendship and that Soo Young never interested her. Besides, they irritate each other. Upon hearing this, the boy suddenly declares that Jun Sol has never irritated him, and moreover, he likes her. Young Yuk, observing the scene in silence, drains another glass in one gulp. Fiercely, upon saying goodbye, Soo Young offers to drive the protagonist home, but she flatly refuses. Just then Young Yuk appears and says he can drive her, since they live close to each other. As Young Sol doesn't respond, the man abruptly takes her arm, giving her no choice. This does not go unnoticed by Soo Young, who grabs her other hand. The tension is palpable. He insists that Mr. Kang has drunk too much, but the man replies that he has a driver. The protagonist tells Soo Young that she will go with the director, so he doesn't take a detour. How convenient. After saying goodbye, she goes towards Junjung, leaving the boy completely confused. The protagonists return home, holding hands. Upon entering the room, Yoongjung pushes her against the wall and starts kissing her. He is happy to finally see her awake. Junseol asks him to stop and asks why he is behaving this way. The girl wants to know if he enjoys playing with her feelings, since, angry with her, he left her alone. She was upset that Yoongjung abandoned her in the elevator yesterday, that he disappears in the mornings, and that he goes to bed at night without talking. Because of these words, the man understands that Junseol really slept last night and didn't even notice his presence. According to the protagonist, she doesn't want any complications. She has thought a lot about her feelings for him and feels they are getting deeper. Upon hearing those words, Yoongjung's heart begins to beat fast. Junseol says she hates feeling like he is playing with her after everything that happened, and that if he is not sincere, he had better ignore her. Hugging the girl by the shoulders, Yoongjung replies that, since she became his wife, his feelings have always been sincere, and that now he cannot stop thinking about her, that he wants to be by her side constantly. With those words, Yoongjung kisses Junseol tenderly. The next day, arriving at work together, the protagonist complains that Yoongjung didn't let her get out of the car before entering the building. The man sarcastically asks if she is worried that Seo Kyung will see them together. Junseol is fed up with repeating that she and Seo Kyung are just friends and gets angry that he talks like that, as if he didn't have female friends. Yun Young replies that indeed, he has no female friends. And the girl is about to get out of the car when he grabs her wrist. Smiling, the man tells her that she hasn't paid him for the ride. He points to his cheek, implying he wants a kiss from her. Yun Seol leans toward her husband, although she thinks it would be terrible if someone saw them. Completely ignoring her words, Yun Young pulls her toward him and kisses her on the lips. Just as both, disheveled, get out of the car, Yongmi appears in the parking lot. The girl, without hiding her surprise, asks, "Why are Junseol and the director getting out of the same car?" The protagonist tries to justify herself and says that Mr. Kang simply found her on the road and offered to take her to work. But Yongmi, in response, laughs and advises the director not to forget to wipe the lipstick off his lips. Having said that, the girl turns around and hurries to the office without stopping smiling. The protagonist is sitting at her workstation when Seo Kyun asks her from the cubicle if she got home safely yesterday. He asks, since when is she so close to Mr. Kang? And Jun Seol replies that the boy's imagination has run wild. Just then, Young-mi approaches and asks Seo Kyun to bring her some documents from the sales department. The boy doesn't understand how Jun Sul has gotten so close to Mr. Kang if she rarely lets anyone get close. Maybe it's because the director has taken her home several times, or perhaps his imagination is playing tricks on him. But upon returning from sales, Seo Kyun sees Mr. Kang next to Jun Sul while she prints some papers. After taking a sip of his coffee, the man offers the cup to the girl. And then, Jun Sul drinks from the same cup as the director, as if nothing is happening. Witnessing the closeness between the two, Seo Kyun cannot believe his eyes and feels burned. On his first day of classes, Seo Kyun was woken up by his father's shouts, furious that he had overslept. To his question about what time he returned home yesterday, the boy, scratching his head, replied around 2 in the morning. The father ordered Seo Kyun to get up immediately. Anyone would be happy to enter a prestigious university. As his father threatened to take away his card, the boy rushed to class. Upon entering the classroom, Seok Yoon begged no one to notice his late arrival. It was then, taking a look around, that he saw Jun Seol for the first time, sitting nearby. She captured his interest instantly, and shortly after, their relationship blossomed, becoming best friends. Seok Yoon was comfortable in that role and hoped it would remain so forever, without changes. The boy believed they would always be together, and that he would always be the only man for her. But those hopes were shattered when he saw how close Yoon Seol was to the director. When Yoon Yoon approached the protagonist and offered her his coffee, she hesitated, fearing being seen. She reminded him that Young-mi had seen them in the morning, and the employees would already be gossiping. Smiling, Young Young suggested to Jun Seol that they announce their marriage, so they wouldn't have to hide. The protagonist doesn't want to be treated differently just for being the director's wife. And when Young Young said that their secret marriage in college didn't mean the same thing here, she angrily snatched the coffee away from him. Just then, Seo Kyun walked by, and upon seeing them together froze. The boy's hands loosen. The folder falls to the floor, and noticing it, Young-mi approaches Tel. Looking where Seo Kyun is looking, the girl starts to chuckle. Young-mi whispers her suspicion that there is something between Yoon Seol and the director, as she saw them getting out of his car in the morning. And then, according to her, the girl wiped something off Mr. Kang's face. Meanwhile, Yoon Young asks her if she intends to tell Seo Kyun everything, since he is his friend. However, Jun Seol doesn't know how to confess to him, as she believes he is different from Jeong Yoon. Jun Young doesn't understand the problem if they are actually just friends. Jun Seol suggests talking about this at home, but her husband insists. Seok Yoon doesn't see her as just a friend. He said so. Despite everything, the protagonist still doesn't believe he feels anything for her. How stubborn. Jun Young can't believe Jun Seol is so naive. Does she really not notice? He affirms that for Sakyeon, she is much more than a friend. Much more. Suddenly, the girl stops to think. What if he is actually right? How will Sakyeon react when he finds out she and Jun Jun are married? Drama. Realizing that continuing to hide it will only make things worse, the protagonist decides to be honest with Sakyeon. She asks him if he is free after work and suggests they go somewhere to talk. So nervous, the The boy replies that he is glad for the coincidence, as he also wanted to tell her something. This is getting interesting. Junseol texts Junjung, telling him she's going to tell Seo Kyung everything. Just as planned, she offers to let him go home alone and promises to arrive as soon as she talks to her friend. Sitting in the cafe, Junseol admires the cool places Seo Kyung always finds, although she doesn't think the place is ideal for their meeting, because it looks more like a cafe for couples. However, Seo Kyung, with a completely serious face, asks what's wrong with them being there too. Junseol laughs and replies that nothing is wrong. After all, they are best friends. But the boy doesn't even return her smile. He is serious like never before, taking the hand with which she had just patted his shoulder. Seo Kyung declares that from now on, he doesn't want to be just her friend. The protagonist asks what he means, hoping that Youngmi didn't tell the boy what she saw this morning. Seo Kyung is surprised that Junseol hasn't realized yet that he likes her. He confesses that, from the beginning, he wanted them to be more than just friends. Pulling her hand away, the heroine declares that she doesn't understand why he rejected her when she proposed marriage. According to Seok-yoon, it was too sudden for him, and he wasn't sure of his feelings at that moment. But after seeing Junseol with Mr. Kang, he lost his peace and realized that he had always liked her. The heroine understands that Yoongjung was right, and now she is obliged to tell Seok-yoon about her marriage before things get worse. She is about to tell him, but the boy suddenly grabs Junseol by the shoulders, trying to convince her that he knows her better than that handsome and successful man. He promises to treat her well, and he is even willing to wait if she wants to date someone else. Taking Junseol's hands, Sakyeon promises to always wait for her. Taking a deep breath, the heroine asks him to calm down and listen to her. Releasing Sakyeon's hands, she says he shouldn't wait for her, as they will always be friends. Finally, Yoonseol confesses that she is already married to Mr. Kang. After an uncomfortable silence, Seok-yoon shouts that if Kang proposed marriage, it was just a joke, and she shouldn't believe him. Just then, Yeon-yoon approaches and drops the bombshell, that he proposed marriage and meant it completely seriously. Immediately after, he takes the protagonist's hand and one by one begins to remove all the unnecessary rings. Leaving only the wedding band, Kang shows the rings to Seok Kyun, and Yoon-seol, embarrassed, confirms that she is already married. According to Young-young, he just wanted Seok Kyun to know that Yoon-seol is his wife. Since he is a close friend, they were going to keep it secret until she graduated, but they trust him as his friend. Young-young takes his wife away, commenting that Seok Kyun needs time to digest the news. Alone, the boy tries to calculate how long Junseol has been married and remembers when she arrived in class with rings on every finger. Then, he remembers seeing a ring on Professor Kang's finger. The truth hits him. He recalls their late-night calls to Junseol, his anger, and her excuses about her roommate. It all fits. Young Yoon described that neighbor is tall with dark hair. Mr. Kang offered to drive Junseo home, as they live at the same address. Putting all the puzzle pieces together, Seo Kyun doesn't understand how he didn't see it coming. The boy feels like a complete idiot. There were so many signs, and he noticed none of them. That same night, Soojin nervously bites her nails. The girl is indignant that Mr. An failed to secure her internship at SOV with his spies. The man asks her to be calm, assuring her that sooner or later Mr. Kang will be hers. The spies reported rumors that the director has gotten too close to a student, and Soojin cannot be at ease. But soon he calms her down by thinking that these same spies didn't fail her in Guam. They even gave her Yoonyoung's room number. Soojin promises to reward them for their good work and reminds them she always gets what she wants. The next day, Yoon-seol meets Jeong-yoon and tells her that Seo Kyung confessed his feelings to her. According to her friend, he spoke to her yesterday and told her about her secret marriage with Kang, but he hid his own confession. To Jeong-yoon's question about why Seo Kyung decided to do such a thing, the protagonist replies that he was driven by envy upon seeing them with Jun-young. The girl can't believe that Kang was also present at that meeting, who put things in perspective. And today Seo Kyun didn't come to the office. It's obvious that yesterday's events were a big shock to him. Young-yoon asks her friend not to worry about him, believing he just needs time. But the one Jun-seol should really worry about is Mr. Kang, because he wanted her to tell Seo Kyun everything, not because he was worried about him, but because he wanted him to know that Jun-seol is his wife. Young-yoon is impressed by the speed at which this marriage is progressing. Later, lying in bed at home, the protagonist worries about Seo Kyan, wondering if he will be okay. The boy didn't reply to her message about why he didn't go to the office today, and that's starting to worry her. Jun Young enters the room, surprised that his wife is not asleep yet. Noticing that Jun Seul is hugging a pillow against her stomach, he asks if she feels well. The girl complains of cramps and Yoonjung offers not to go to the office tomorrow if she feels unwell. The protagonist replies that she is fine, that it's just the first day of her menstrual cycle. Sitting down next to her on the bed, Yoonjung asks his wife to come closer. Turning to her husband, Junseol asks how he knew that Seo Kyung always felt something for her. Junjung sighed and called her naive, because no matter what a man says, when he likes someone, he shows it with his actions. He suggests to Young Seol that she try to remember how Seo Kyung behaved towards her. Then, smiling, Young asks if she is going to give up on this marriage after finding out about her friend's feelings. He heard Seo Kyung suggest waiting for Young Seol and wants to know if she will accept his offer. The girl turns and replies that, even if that were the case, he wouldn't let her do it. And Young confirms his words. According to the protagonist, she is sad that her husband keeps joking about her, knowing her feelings, since it seems like he doubts her. Junjung caresses the girl's face and suggests that, in that case, she should openly say what she feels for him. And then Junseol confesses that she really fell in love with him, and that he is the only one she keeps in her heart. Then Yoonjung asks her to show him how much she loves him, and the girl kisses him passionately on the lips. The next day, Sakyeon finally arrives at the office. Upon seeing him, Junseol tells him she was worried because she couldn't contact him. The girl understands that he doesn't want to talk to her and that he is still hurt, but she hopes they will remain friends. However, Sakyeon doesn't reply and, remaining silent, sits at his desk. Later, meeting Junseol in the elevator, he lowers his head and walks past, ignoring her. Unable to stand this attitude any longer, the protagonist grabs his arm and pulls him aside, demanding that he listen to her. She declares that she regrets not having told him sooner, but that doesn't make him any less of a friend than he is. According to Junseol, she just wanted to keep this marriage a secret, but everything happened too fast. Pushing her, Seokyeon asks what happened fast. Why did she marry Kang, and how long have they known each other? She confesses that she begged him to marry her because her grandfather is very sick, and he wanted to see her married. And when he refused, she ran into Yoonjung. Seokyeon is surprised that Yoonseol already refers to that man by his name. According to the protagonist, it was as if it were predestined, since the Kang family was close to her grandfather, and both her and Yoonjung were pursuing the same goal. Seokyeon is furious with Yoonseol for not telling him the real reason from the beginning, but she insists that, as he said, they are both very young and their families would oppose it. And this wedding only took place because the groom was Yoonjung. She deeply regrets not having told everything earlier, but she still considers Seokyeon a close friend. And then the boy replies that even as friends, he will not stop waiting for her. If Yoonseol ever decides to divorce Yoonjung, then she can come to him. Shaking her head, the protagonist remembers that she is married now and that they will only be friends forever. The girl leaves, adding at the end that it makes no sense for him to wait for her. The next day, Seo Kyan arrives at the office in an excellent mood. Jong Mi and Hae Young notice his new haircut and say it suits him very well. Junseol is happy to see how Seo Kyan is back to his old self and is now showing off to the girls. Noticing Miss Jun's new bag, the boy congratulates her and says she also looks special today, while the secretary explains how she bought the bag as a reward for her hard work. Junseol's phone rings. To Hae Young's question about whether she spoke to the director, the girl replies that he asked her to bring him a coffee. When the protagonist goes for Young's coffee, the secretary watches her closely as she walks away. Seo Kyung goes down to the cafeteria and asks for 2 iced Americanos to be prepared. Approaching the register, Hee Young asks for 3 coffees to be made and presents her card. The boy thanks the secretary for the invitation, and she asks him to understand her, but she wants to know why he orders 2 drinks. Seo Kyung replies that one is for Young Seol, because she loves drinking iced Americano after lunch. Hyeyoung asks if he and Miss Choi are close to the director, since Mr. Kang only invited them to his office on the first day of the internship. The boy recounts that Mr. Kang was his professor in college, and he chose them for the internship thanks to their good grades. According to him, there were 3 of them at first, but one girl had already started an internship in her aunt's office. In response, Hae-jong says everything makes sense now because she thought that she and Kang were somehow related. Although Seok-young remembers the moment when Jun-young showed his rings with Jun-seul, he can only manage to laugh. To the young man's question about how long she has been working there, Hae-jong replies that she started as a secretary's assistant. Then she was promoted to secretary, as she handled schedules and trips brilliantly when T showed up. And Saab formed the joint venture. Seok-hyun admires her dedication, and she advises him to follow her example if he also wants to achieve great things. Yoon-seul prepares the meeting room, distributing documents on the table. Instantly, Yoon-young calls the girl and asks her to come down to his car immediately. The protagonist refuses. She had already told him she wasn't planning to do that in the office. But Yoon-young says he doesn't understand what exactly she isn't planning to do and begs her to help him bring up the snacks he bought. Although he wouldn't mind hearing the confession that Yoon-seul was hoping for something more. The protagonist interrupts him and replies that she will come down right away. Approaching the car, she is already ready to get angry about the joke, as she sees no snacks in his hands. Yoon-young asks the girl to look at the back seat, where several boxes are waiting for her. To his question about why he bought so many, Yoon-seul assumes he is apologizing for what Kyeon desired. Yoon-young tells her to relax and offers her one of the boxes that he bought especially for her. The protagonist looks ecstatically at the cakes, so beautiful that she feels bad eating them. She had heard about that trendy new pastry shop from Young Yoon and was dying to try their desserts. According to Jun Young, Min Jun told him about the place, as he loves finding restaurants and interesting spots. Jun Seol asks if this is an example of when he said that men show their affection with actions. But Jun Young replies that he is just fulfilling his marital duty to make her happy. How considerate. He gets out of the car and reminds the girl not to forget to take the boxes with her. Upon leaving the elevator, the heroine suggests that he could tell her, and she promises not to bother him so much. But Jun Young replies ironically that, as she herself said, they cannot do that in the office. Jun Seol gets angry with this cheeky one. However, the anger immediately subsides, because when rounding the corner, the girl sees something she absolutely did not expect. In the middle of the hallway, illuminating everything with her wide smile, is Soojin. The girl came to SOV on behalf of her father, who had an urgent matter and sent his daughter to the meeting. Noticing Jun Seol, Soojin asks if she is interning there with Seo Kyeon and Jeong Yoon. Suddenly, she realizes that the girl is carrying boxes from a trendy pastry shop in her hands. Soojin says she can't believe Jun Yang ordered those cakes for her. Turning to Mr. Han, she asks when he had time to inform Mr. Kang about her visit. The girl thanks Jun Yang and apologizes for ruining his surprise, while Yun Sul stays behind. Confused, Mr. Han invites all employees to enjoy the cakes that Mr. Kang bought for Miss Soojin. And then, with a sense of duty fulfilled, he listens to how they admire the girl's beauty, that she would be an ideal couple for their director. Jun Sul also overhears all these conversations about how romantic Mr. Kang is. At the end of the workday, Seo Kyeon approaches the girl and asks if she will wait for Jun Young to go home. Jun Sul assumes her husband is still busy, but the boy informs her that the meeting ended a long time ago, and everyone left. Seo Kyeon starts teasing his friend, who is acting like a real wife, and the protagonist convinces herself once again that he is back to his old self. After saying goodbye to her friend, the protagonist gets up from her seat, wondering why Jun Young hasn't called or texted her yet. The thought that he might be with Soojin won't leave her in peace. However, when the elevator doors open, she sees Jun Young inside. Without answering where he was, he takes her hand and pulls her toward him. They go down to the parking lot together, still holding hands. Although Yoon Seol is terrified of being seen, Yoongjung doesn't care what they think. Knowing that his wife looked for him, he asks if she was worried about seeing him with his Jean. She, furious, tells him to forget it and hurries to the car. Upon opening the door, Yoon Seol sees a box from that same pastry shop on the seat. Assuming he forgot to take it to the office, she asks to try the little cakes, since her colleagues ate them all. Junjun wants to know how she felt seeing them devour her sweets. According to Jun Seol, she felt as if something very precious had been taken from her. Upon opening the box, the protagonist discovers that her husband bought her new little cakes. He ordered personalized little cakes with her initials, so that no one would dare eat them instead of her. The little cakes are so beautiful that Yoon Seol wants to show them to her parents first, and to Yoon Seo. But Yoon Seol doesn't understand why. He tries to force her to try the little cakes right now, threatening to eat them himself. But the girl declares that they are hers, and she will do whatever she wants with them. Before the man can object, Yoon-seol stuffs a little cake into both cheeks, and Yoon-seol says that she will take, perhaps, what belongs to her and kisses the protagonist. The next morning, when Jun-seol arrives at the office, everyone reacts strangely, and they avoid her. Not understanding what is happening, the protagonist asks Seo-kyeon if something has happened. According to the boy, he heard from Jong-mi that Mr. and said something when handing out cakes to the employees. Jun-seol sees from Seo-kyeon's face that he doesn't want to bother her, but asks him to continue. And then he recounts that Mr. and told everyone that she is trying to come between Mr. Kang and Soojin and that she is doing it for money. The protagonist laughs at the idea of taking Yoongjung away from Soojin. Seo Kyung doesn't want this to affect Jun-seol and asks why she doesn't tell the truth. But she doesn't want useless drama. Her internship ends next week. Seo Kyung asks if Jun-seol thinks there is something between Yoongjung and Soojin. They seemed close. It's not strange that she goes that far. He doesn't know that she and Mr. Kang are married. Just then, Soojin enters the office with Mr. N. Seeing her, the protagonist doesn't believe that Yoongjung is hiding anything from her. Soojin comes over to greet Jun-seol and Seo Kyung. She regrets not joining their group for the internship at this company. Soojin asks if they know that they are close and that they saw each other in Guam, where she went with Yoongjung. The secretary announces that the meeting room is ready, and Miss No cannot wait for the director there. As she leaves, Soojin asks Mr. and to get her a macchiato, since she hasn't had coffee yet today. Turning to the interns, the man orders them to do what Miss No asked. Jun-seol offers to bring him coffee from the office cafeteria, but Mr. In states that Soojin only drinks macchiato from her favorite coffee shop. Seo Kyung knows which coffee shop he means and volunteers to go get it. Upon hearing this, Soojin reprimands Ann for communicating with his friends in that tone, and he apologizes. However, if Seo Kyeon insists, he will not object, and calling them good friends. And Jun-seol, he thanks them. At that very moment, as if out of nowhere, Minjun appears in front of her and offers her his beloved caramel macchiato. Mr. Han reacts instantly and says that Mr. Kang must have asked a friend to buy Miss No her favorite drink. The secretary informs Young that Miss Soojin is waiting for him in the conference room. The man is not happy that she is coming instead of her father, but business is business. Young heads to the conference room and suddenly overhears conversations from his colleagues. They are commenting on how much they regret Miss No's situation, as she thinks Choi is her friend. The girls believe Yoon-seol is cruel, as she pretends to be a good friend and tries to take the man away from Soojin. And she is also close to Seo Kyeon. Hearing this, Yun clenches her fists in anger. Completely beside herself, one of the girls sees him and tells the other to speak more quietly, lest the director hear them. Walking to the conference room, Jun-young wonders if these rumors have reached Yoon-seol. He is worried about how she might have taken it, and hopes his wife understands that all of that is a lie. Jun-young no longer has any doubt that his Jean is behind this whole mess. Meanwhile, Mr. Han announces to the employees that they are all invited to a dinner organized by Mr. Kang and Miss No. He asks everyone to clear their schedules for the evening and then goes directly to Yoon-seol and Seo Kyung. Since their internship is ending, this event will also be a farewell party for them. When Mr. N walks away, Seo Kyung asks the protagonist if it wouldn't be better if she didn't go, but she replies that it's fine. Yoon-seol plans to simply have dinner and leave quickly, since if she doesn't go, everyone will think the rumors are true. Before going to the restaurant, Seo Kyung agrees with the protagonist that she will let him know if she feels uncomfortable. Mr. Han raises his glass, thanks everyone for coming, and wishes them an enjoyable dinner. In particular, he thanks Mr. Kang for organizing this event at Miss No's favorite restaurant, since this really means a lot to her. After this, the man proposes a toast to them. Yang-mi asks why Yoon-seol isn't drinking, since this restaurant is known for its wines. Before the girl can reply anything, Yoon-yang approaches their table and declares that he will drink for her. Everyone is stunned to suddenly hear him say that Yoon-seol cannot drink wine. Mr. An jumps up from his seat to remind Mr. Kang that he should be with Miss Soojin. However, Yoon-yang, emptying his glass, declares that there has been a misunderstanding. He received rumors, but wants to assure that there is nothing between him and Miss No. They are just partners. As for his feelings, he already feels them for someone else, for Yoon-seol Choi. While the protagonist tries to understand what the hell is going on, murmurs flood the room. Seo Kyung realizes how uncomfortable Yoon Seol feels at this moment. Looking at Soo Jin, he also realizes that this girl will not stop her harassment anyway. So the boy decides to take charge, and, grabbing Jun Seol, declares that he regrets that Mr. Kang has unrequited feelings. Because he and Miss Choi are already dating, turning to Yoongjung with a huge smile. He tells him he is very sorry, but it seems Mr. Kang arrived too late. Youngmi exclaims that she knew it, that there was something between them and they weren't just friends. And a laugh resounds in the place. A little later, everyone notices that Miss No, accompanied by Mr. N, left in a hurry, claiming urgent matters. Upon leaving the restaurant, Yun Seol thanks Seo Kyeon for helping her, as she almost had a heart attack. And the boy replies that he did it for her, knowing she wasn't comfortable. Seeing Mr. Kang going out onto the street, Seo Kyeon abruptly turns and heads towards him. The boy says it's absurd that this is happening to Yun Seol again, and swears he will distance her from him, since he hasn't given up and will be watching Yun Young. Soo Jin is kissing a boy when the door is knocked, and they inform her that reporter Kim has arrived. To the question of why she needs a journalist, the girl replies that she has a story for him. But this time, she won't tell the reporter about herself. She wants a scandal, and it will be scandalous news about Miss Soo Jin No's marriage. In the morning, Jun Yang hugs Jun Seol tightly and kisses her on the forehead. The protagonist is amazed that he is still there, instead of having run off as usual. Jun Yang replies that he couldn't get up because she was lying on his arm. He complains that his shoulder fell asleep, and Jun Seol rushes to massage it to relieve the pain. Only a couple of minutes later, the heroine realizes that her husband is teasing her again. In response, Jun Yang only says that he is very lucky to have such an attentive wife. The young woman is indignant about the fact that he is always making fun of her. Jun Yang replies that his hand does hurt and suggests they go train together that day. On the way to the gym, Yun Seol tells him about her worries regarding the gossip, and that Soo Yin might find out about her marriage. But the man thinks it's not worth worrying about. The rumors are over, and she is not only angry about not being able to intern at SOV. Jun Seol never imagined that Soo Jin was so obsessed with Yoongjung. But he doesn't care. Upon entering her husband's private gym, the protagonist looks around enthusiastically. According to him, he doesn't exercise here every day. Sometimes he prefers just to run in the park. Yoon Seol is surprised that in the month she has been living here, he never brought her. But Yoonjung replies that she didn't ask. The girl asks if just asking is enough. If she desires something, then she asks, why does Yoonjung exercise every day? Is it because he likes to admire himself in the mirror? Or does he want to impress someone else? Yoonjung stops the treadmill and observes his wife in silence for a moment. Then he takes her and putting her next to him, reminds her that she came to train, not to chat non-stop. The man presses start, and Jun Seol barely manages to react to the treadmill's speed. The girl feels that they still don't know each other well enough. Jun recounts that he started training in high school, and it has become such a habit that his body gets up by itself in the mornings. Jun Seol comments that now she doubts if she can compete with his love for training. The man replies laughing that he is glad she remembers his confession in the restaurant the night before. The protagonist promises to give him another chance to say it if he is really embarrassed. And suddenly, she hears Jun Yang say that he likes her, only to add that he likes her as much as his favorite weight for training. Before Jun Seol and Jun Yang leave for Gyeoke, Hyo Seok advises them to make sure they have everything and forget nothing. She thanks her sister-in-law for taking Jun Seo, but the protagonist thinks it's a great opportunity for a little vacation, since he is on vacation and she finished her internship. Hyo Seok confesses that Taejin and he were worried about Yoon Seol and are glad the internship is finally over. Peeking through the window, Yoon Seol tells the protagonist to get going, and her mother wishes them a good trip. Hyo Seok advises Junyoung to make stops and rest along the way. If he suddenly feels tired, Jun Seo cheerfully waves goodbye to his mother by hand. And the car starts. Hyo Seok feels incredibly happy because since Junyoung married Jun Seol, he has changed a lot and has gotten closer to the family. Throughout the entire trip, the protagonist and Jun Seo watch funny videos in the back seat, and they laugh. After passing 2 cities, Junyoung makes a stop to quickly check the car. Jun Seol prepares to go with Jun Seo to buy some snacks. Since Junyoung refuses, they go to the store just the two of them. Upon returning, Yun Seol asks if they made him wait too long and if everything is okay with the car. noticing that her husband answers her rather dryly and behaves strangely. The protagonist suggests that he lie down in the car and rest. Putting his wife in the front seat, Jun Yang says that Jun Seol is already in high school and can sit alone in the back. Seeing that Yoon Seol bought coffee, he happily drinks from his cup. Now he is finally satisfied, and they can continue their journey. Upon arriving home, the protagonist runs to hug her grandfather, apologizing for not having come sooner. But the old man is happy that his granddaughter is well and happy. Yoon Seol asks her grandfather if she can stay here during the vacation. Mr. Choi ruffles the boy's hair and wishes him to fully enjoy his rest on the island. Aunt Sung Jieum has already prepared rooms, so everyone can rest from the long journey. Alone with Jun Yang, the grandfather asks him if his father told him anything about their families. According to the boy, his father told him about how much Mr. Choi did for his family, and without him, the TJ Corporation would not have reached such heights. The grandfather asks if Taejin told him what exactly almost destroyed their family business. Hun Yang doesn't understand what he's talking about, and the old man begs him to listen. Once a loan shark disguised as a businessman, Yang Taino, tried to sabotage Grandpa Kang and the Choi Construction Company. Yun Yang asks if he means Jin Yuno's father, the former member of the Legislative Assembly. When asked if he knows them, he replies that he knows his daughter Soo Jin, who studies with Yoon Seol, and that his parents always advised him to stay away from that family. So the grandfather recounts that he always raised his granddaughter, telling her nothing, not even about his real job. All Yoon Seol knows is that her parents died in an accident, but not everything is as it seems, and Choi doesn't know what will happen if they discover that Yoon Seol is his granddaughter. And since he has very little time left, he asks Yoon to take care of the young woman. He must try by all means to protect Yoon Seol from the No family.